Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So the reason I decided to do second live, right? I think there's something I want to say the last live, which I'm going to delete. Yeah, I guess I want to start this off with giving some updates, and I'll probably do a trailer or something like that for something I'm going to do on my channel. I'm going to create a playlist called American History X, which is also a play on of course, the movie, right? But the movie basically was named that because of the concept that one of the characters had of he wanted to basically de-radicalize this Nazi skinhead student of his, who happened to be the brother of another student of his who got radicalized, right? And it was basically about learning about the history of our country, or my country, to international viewers, and things that we're not so proud about. And I think I really want to do a series. And I think the first episode, God, what would I do the first episode? I think I would do the first episode on the Tuskegee experiments, especially with vaccinations becoming an issue and something that's being brought up. I think it's really important that we talk about why people disagree on it, because it's like some people are just like, I don't get it. That's a conspiracy theory. I just don't understand why anybody could be against it. The fact that there is a history, not with only the Tuskegee experiments, but the scientific community in of itself has done a lot of questionable things and unethical, terrible things in its history. And it's funny, people can question religion all they want to. They can question certain ideologies all they want to, but they can't question the motives and the intentions of the scientific community. And that they're just like anyone else. They can be bought and push their own agendas as well, especially if you consider a lot of scientists also are, historically Western science, right? A lot of those people were social Darwinists. A lot of those people were also racist, like unapologetically. And a lot of their theories, the things they came up with, were also, they viewed, they called it the yellow peril. They viewed an overpopulation. Overpopulation always was a term used for people like, non-Western countries. And we know what Western means, right? It means Anglo-Saxon, white, or whatever like that, right? Caucasian, if you will. And it basically, a lot of the concepts of, quote, overpopulation really affect them. And it's curious because when people think of overpopulation, right? If overpopulation really was a thing in human history, right? Because there's been wars and all kinds of stuff, famines, plagues that have killed off millions of people throughout human history. When you think about the concept of overpopulation, the reason that overpopulation is a big thing is because of the allocation of resources, right? People used to be agrarian. We used to be subsistence farmers. So, of course, you only had as many children as you could feed. But, of course, in the societies we live in right now, overpopulation is a thing because the average human uses so many resources day in, day out, more than we ever have in our entire history. But that's a whole other discussion. But I wanted to kind of give a brief of what I have plans in the future. But anyway, so this is going to be a description of my biggest struggle. And my biggest struggle, and shout out to Curly Whirly, and some of my regular viewers. You guys, I really appreciate when you guys get in the comment section and you guys show me love. I wholeheartedly appreciate it because I've been still suffering from my sleep problems. So tonight, God, I'm going to try to go to bed early and get some sleep. I try to make Dicker like while I'm in bed a lot of the time to kind of get me in the mood to get some sleep. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. And I try not to take anything, to just get me sleepy. Of course, I avoid alcohol and things like that. But it sucks a lot, man. It sucks a lot when I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't fall asleep until maybe midnight. And it's wearing me down, man. I don't even know how I just do not collapse at work sometimes. I mean, really, like it's a miracle, alhamdulillah. It really is. It shows that, there's something inside of ourselves that pushes us, a little bit and stops us from breaking, which is why I believe that there is a soul, that there is a spirit. But anyway, my biggest struggle is how do I explain this? It's basically the conflict between my soul and my body and this Dunya, right? So when I was in the hospital, I remember, and actually I still have the notebook that I wrote this on. And of course, when you're at the hospital, they give you medications and stuff like that to kind of like take you mentally certain places and things like that. But when I was at hospital, I noticed one thing. It felt like when I was in that hospital, it's like a zoo. And it felt like a zoo, and it felt like this is where society sends people that can't function and be a cog in the machine. And we see some people that are like cogs. This is not saying like, oh, I'm in some matrix or anything like that. No, I mean just like society is like, hey, you have a job or you contribute something and you're functional and you continue the flow of society. And if you don't do that, then something's wrong with you, obviously, right? And especially I live in Cali, right? I see people. I mean, there's homeless people that choose to be homeless. There's, a lot. Some of them, I see these guys, they're out there just drinking, smoking all day, and they're literally doing that all day. Like that's all these people. I kid you not, man. I go to certain cities, I see the same people on the same block doing the same thing every day. It's like I would get bored out of my mind, bro. Just that alone, like, dude, this is all you're freaking doing all day. What a waste of life. That's the way I look at it. But hey, wallahi, man, maybe they're better people than I am. And there's also people that aren't, and some of these people sort of have mental problems, or some people are just down and out on their luck. They burn bridges, they lost their job, they suffer from addiction, whatever you like to call it, right? And they're just out on the freaking street, like point blank, period. Society's got no love for these people. If they did, they wouldn't be in the situation they're right now, and they get walked over every sense of the way. Like it's sad. Dude. I'm probably saying this every other stream, man. It is disgusting. That and I'm not. This is not everywhere in the world it exists, but we talk about the quote third world, right? It's like, oh, these places are already poor, so if they're homeless, I mean, they're, it's not as bad, or whatever like that, because they're on similar levels to comparatively to other people, right? But for a country with so much wealth and so much, going on, or where the center, we view ourselves as being the center of the world. I mean, especially in this state, I just, it's just too many people I just walk by every day that are just down and out. And I think we live in a bubble. And I think Americans, everybody lives in their own little bubble. It's like, if you have a certain amount of money, you have a bubble around yourself, right? Because we are a capitalist society, so somebody could be born poor and be rich, within a couple of years or whatever like that, right? And even in that experience, like they might have come from humble beginnings, but once they attain that wealth, they can just completely forget about where they came from, and so they live in this bubble, right? And they say, they know the problem with society has all these problems, but they do nothing. And I mean, absolutely. I mean, I hate to say it, bro. I see so many people I interact with on a daily basis, or people that are friends of friends, whatever like that, that they don't care about society's ills until it comes knocking on their door. And I gotta say, I'm one of those people. That's why my passion is to become a teacher. Like that's me doing my part. And it could be somebody who wants to be a nurse or something like that. Like I have to do something that I think makes society better. I can't just be, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur and all this other crap, or I want to work in this factory and this and that, and I want this office job. I have to contribute something to stop the wave of destitution that I see out there. I can't do it economically. I can only do it by providing knowledge, right? That's my part. That's my gift. That's my talent. That's my God-given gift. Is I think I have a passion for knowledge, and I want to instill that passion in other people, because I think that's a very important thing to have. Now, people have knowledge about things that I consider that are important, but they don't really amount to anything when it comes to society. Society feels like, I hate to say it, like And I have a lot of brothers on here that are smart and knowledgeable about economics, and I want to plug their brains and get involved maybe into the stock market and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of people that are really knowledgeable about that, but, and how to attain wealth. But it's like once you attain that wealth, all you're doing is just stockpiling that for yourself. You're not really trying to provide opportunities for other people. It's not about giving people handouts. It's like, hey, pass that knowledge on to other people so they can rise above. Because obviously, I hate to say, you probably didn't do that on your own. You had somebody help you out. You know what I mean? People are really knowledgeable about celebrity gossip, which doesn't amount to anything. Like that's absolutely useless information. Who's so and so sleeping with, or who's so and so's biggest top 10 hit. You know about that, but in the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And it's really sad when I see stuff like that. So my biggest struggle is a concept that I like to call the ghost versus the machine. The ghost is you can't see it, right? You can't see it. It's the things, it's like air. It's like all the little molecules and everything in the universe in like space, right? Space is supposed to be this vacuum, but there's even stuff in between there that we can't see with our own eyes, right? And it's that we humans are enslaved to our senses. If we can't see something, then it doesn't exist. If we can't hear something, it's not there. It's not moving. And because of this, we're kept in this small perspective on our perception of life in the universe. I'm not trying to sound deep or anything like that. I'm just really this is coming from my heart. This is coming from my soul. And I'm just pouring this out into the world, right? So bear with me as I navigate these feelings. So with that being considered, the ghost is what I believe is the human soul, the human spirit, right? And when we depart this life, we're merely leaving this mortal body, this vessel. This flesh is just a tool. This is just a vessel. This is like a car or a ship, an airplane or something like that for what I believe our spirits are. And then we depart this world. I don't know if we go to, I have faith of what that leads to, but wallahi, you can have your own feelings about that. You could just believe that this is it in and of itself, right? I mean, we don't even understand consciousness. Like literally psychologists and everybody else, the scientific community still doesn't understand human consciousness. We come up with theories about the origins of the universe. We come up with theories about black holes and all that stuff that we can't even touch. We can't even reach these things. Planets, billions of light years away. We have theories of what's out there, right? But we can't even understand our human minds, right? So I think that in of itself is proof that man will never probably truly know itself. And that's because we have something internally that is beyond description, beyond metaphysical, beyond our physical realm that supersedes all of our knowledge, right? That's why I personally believe, right? Like just like we look at animals, right? We look at animals and we say, oh, dogs can't do this, fish can't do that. Human beings, we have this super ego of where we think we can just intrinsically understand everything. And unfortunately, I think that's utter garbage. And I think that's what leads us down so many dark paths in history. And then there's the machine, right? So the machine is this body, right? It's something that I believe our spirit uses, right, to interact with the physical realm and the material world, right? We have our senses, we feel, we touch, we hear, things like that. And that's what our spirit uses to communicate with the outside world, with what the material world. And so my biggest struggle is navigating what is more important to me, because I hate to say it, like the world we live in today is so materialistic and so obsessed with being happy. And basically the key to human happiness, at least in the culture that I live in and the world that I live in and the things I see around me, happiness is decided by the acquisition of material things. and receiving as much pleasure as possible. Like that's literally what people believe life is all about. Like the majority of people that I run across sometimes, it's the object of life is to attain as much pleasure and as much materials that project your happiness as much as possible. And I can't explain this to people because they'll never understand, because especially if you have that conversation in, like, for instance, there's a lot of things you don't talk about at work, right? So I feel super uncomfortable having this conversation at work because this is like so heavy on people's heads. And this is something I think about on a daily basis for the most part, right? But if you tell somebody that their entire life is based upon, human interaction, socializing, the acquisition of material things, and things of that nature, and receiving as much pleasure in this life as possible, that in the long run, I think to me is detrimental, right? And I will never, and I feel like that's why religions and spirituality, true religion and true spirituality is under attack in the world that we see, is because it's a direct opposite and uncompromising opposite to those notions, right? If you believe that there's a higher power than yourself and that this life is merely another stage, or that this life is a temporary post for your spirit, you're not heavily invested in a materialistic system. You're not invested into the mundane monotony of what society tells you is right or wrong, or what a human being is supposed to be doing. You have to have the best car. You have to have the best phone. You have to have the best laptop. You have to have the best looking girlfriend. You have to have the best, sex. You have to have the best drug to keep you high. You have to have the best alcohol to drink. You have to have the best this, and this, and this. And you have to have these things that give you pleasure. And all too often, these things are temporary, right? Everything that you attain materially, or even pleasure, right? There's no permanent pleasure. Like, you can't take a pill and permanently be on this high. You can't take a sip of alcohol and permanently be drunk, because obviously if that was true, the whole system would collapse, because they wouldn't be able to make a profit, right? Like, you would just take this one thing, you'd be good for the rest of your life, right? So, and then I think it's also physically impossible for you to reach that state of consciousness, right? To just be like, hey, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to have, like, I'm not trying to be rude or perverse, but let's say sex, right? Sex doesn't last forever, right? Especially for most men. Like, you do your thing, you climax, it's over. Woman is a different thing. Sometimes, they of course they have multiple, and they can go for a little bit longer or whatever like that, but you're not doing it 24/7 all day, every day. Right. So everything, all these experiences that raise our consciousness or give us this pleasure, they eventually end. Right. They eventually end. And then once that ends, what is it all about? And I think that's the reason I reached this point in my life. That's why I did the things I did. It's because, and hey, if you're a materialistic person, that makes you happy. Hey, wallahi, that's you. But all too often what I see is those people try to push that onto people that don't believe that. And yes, so you could argue spiritual people to that same time. But no, if you look at the mainstream narrative that's being pushed all around the world, is the material world is the end all be all, and that's the purpose of life, is to dive into it head over heels and succumb and submit to it. And I feel like my biggest struggle is fighting to not be a prisoner of that, because I think it's enslaving, right? Like, I'm enslaved and I submit to my creator. That's what I believe. Whether you believe that or not, or that there is one, I submit to myself something higher than myself, because I believe it brings me tranquility and beauty in my life. Like, when I offer Salah, especially when you're rock bottom, and when I was in the hospital especially, that was the best high, that was the best experience I've ever experienced. It's better than any sex I've ever had in my entire life. Just putting my forehead to the ground, putting my head to the ground, and just saying, hey, just take me wherever you need to take me. I surrender. I give up. And I not give up like, oh, I have this problem in my life and I give up and I just want to die or something like that. But it's just like, use me as a tool. Use me as a tool for something good, because obviously I'm not a tool for anything good for my own purposes. Like, I understand my nature now. I understand I have a very destructive nature. And I don't know if I can ever cure that, because at the age I am right now, if I had chances to kind of reprogram that, that would have happened a while ago. And I think that, I have to learn how to navigate and fight those NAFs, those destructive NAFs, those dysfunctional NAFs, those dysfunctional urges. And to some people that may not see a big deal, but dude, I mean, they don't know what it's like to be me. They never lived in my body. They never lived in the flesh. They don't have this mind. They don't know this heart and what it's longed for, what it's lust for. And and what's thrown away, the people I've hurt, how I've hurt myself. And at the end of the day, every time I really, I lower my gaze when I'm supposed to. I fast when I'm supposed to. I do come short, and I'm not going to lie that I do come short sometimes. That's why it's called practicing, right? And when that does happen, I realize my nature, right? Like, and I can't succumb to that, because to other people that may seem fun, that may seem, quote, liberating, that may seem like ordinary and normal. But just because of all those things doesn't mean it's necessarily good. If you know what I'm saying. And I have to fight that. I have to fight that. That's what makes me happy more than anything, is when I fight that and I win. To have that self-control, to have that discipline. And to other people, that's something they don't need to discipline. It's like, oh, I don't have a drinking problem. I could drink alcohol and do this. But even those same people, they know that they've done things drunk that they regret. They know that they, when they lusted after someone or something, that came at a sacrifice of their dignity, or a sacrifice of exploiting somebody else, or they gave their heart out to someone or their body out to someone and they regret it, because that happens a lot, right? Human beings just act like, and especially in this hyper sexual, hyper liberal, hyper liberated, quote unquote, society, people think that just because you get something or want to get something, that there's a price for that. And you still carry baggage through all these experiences. And all too often, I think it's like, when you have certain experiences, you're opening a door, right? You're opening a door and you think you can close it and shut it, but all too often you leave the door wide open, because you can't wait for the next time to open the door. You just leave the door open. And we leave that door open, you let a lot of things come out of there. There's pain, there's heartache, there's regret, there's guilt, there's shame. And then you can say, oh, we're against this kind of shame and stuff like that. You're still going to be ashamed of the things you do. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of people wouldn't be out here doing what they would do if they knew that all people would want to know about it. Like, there's people that are very open, like they're, obviously there's a whole industry of people out there that are completely shameless, and they do just, things that normal people consider disgusting or just out there for the whole world to see, and they don't have any shame about that. Granted, a lot of these people are freaking miserable, and they never really talk about that, but it is what it is, right? But you want your privacy, quote unquote, but when you do things that you think are right, you shouldn't be ashamed of it being exposed, right? If you truly are proud of it, or you're doing something that you think is good, you should never be proud that it's exposed. Like, for instance, like, oh, did you see blah 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 offer Salah? Like imagine everybody knew about that. Like, would I be ashamed of that? No, because that's something that I like to do. That's something I think is beneficial for me. But if you're going to do things and then be ashamed of people knowing about it, I think you need to question what you're doing. That's internally something, and this not that as much as they say it's the sight and stuff like that. I think internally people know when they're doing something that is questionable. But hey, you're never going to learn until you do it, right? That's what they teach you. That's what they encourage. It's like, hey, you're gonna learn from life until you make mistakes. But some mistakes that you make in life, you can't come back from, bro. There's no reset button. There's no rewind button. And our society is full of people that have done things that they can't regret. And there's people that have been caught, or there's people that have been exposed, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I'm gonna be honest, man. A lot of people out here that act like they're sweet, they don't make mistakes. They're the biggest, most disingenuous people out there. That's why I put out here, man. I air out my dirty laundry because I want you to know that I am a person of character. I've screwed up, man. I screwed up, and I hold myself accountable. I won't want. I mean, if other people want to hold me accountable, bro. I'll put my stuff out there. So there's no, oh, so and so got exposed. Like, no, I exposed myself. I already told you what I am. I already told you my problems. I already told you my naps. But there's a lot of people out there, they act like, oh, I would never cheat on my boyfriend. I would never cheat on my wife. I would never hit on somebody that is married or taken. Oh, I would never drink alcohol or do drugs and do something stupid that I regret for the rest of my life. I would never freaking drive drunk and get in a car accident. I would never do this. And a lot of these people are super disingenuous because, you can kind of tell what happens in the dark happens in the light, like, because everybody has an outlet. Like, nobody keeps, quote, secrets. Everybody tells somebody something, or other people see what they do, right? So that being said, it's obvious that you do something that you're not proud of. And so don't sit on your moral high horse and then lecture other people about what they're doing wrong when you're purposely doing all this stuff and you're trying your best to hide it. You're disingenuous. If you really want to help people, what you should do is let them know that you're like them and that you're working on things and this is what works for you. But I can't stand in our society how there's so many people that sit on their moral high horse and they want to lecture other people about what they need to do in their life. So that's 8:13. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe today's a dry day. It is a Wednesday. That's being said. And there's actually quite a few streams going right now. Let me see who else is on right now. Yeah, my boy Mace is still on. Kevin Samuels is on. He's got 10K people, 10K watching, man. Yeah, that's you can't compete with that. That's a little crazy right there. I can't compete with that, man. That's a lot of prime time right there. So yes, and my boy Sir Ism is on too. He's one of the first people that checked my channel out too, man. Shout out to Sir Ism, man. I haven't really been going over to the Macosphere in a bit, but I mean he has good content also, man. It's just a lot of his stuff, including my boy DJ Kuda. A lot of this stuff happens so late in the day, man. And I'm working again. I can't be up. I always don't sleep enough in general. But I can't be freaking, going over to a stream that starts at 9, 10 o'clock, and I got work at 6 in the morning. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It feels good to, think about that. Think about that. I do have that my biggest struggle. I think I finally realized it. It's basically keeping my spiritual integrity and still, wish I could join, brother, but UK time is late. And I work tomorrow. Yeah, no, it's all good, bro. But thanks for showing some love, man. But yeah, man, so I said my biggest struggle is compromise, keeping my spiritual integrity, keeping my deen, keeping my man up and running, and avoiding sin and avoiding, the whims of this world at the same time. I think that's the hugest battle. Because I think sometimes if you want to prosper in this world, all too often, in order to truly prosper in the world that we have now, you have to sacrifice your spirit. You have to sacrifice something. And often what we see is people have to sacrifice their morality. People have to sacrifice their ethics. People have to sacrifice their spiritual integrity. And it's sad. It's terrible, So that's something that I constantly struggle with. So that's in of itself. My boy Curly, I wish he could come up, man, because we chopped last time we chopped it up, man. That open mic, man, that was fire, bro. That was fire. And I'll send out links tomorrow. I'm taking a test next week on Wednesday. So this weekend I definitely got to get out another open mic because the rest of the time during the weekend I'm going to study. So I'll do something on Saturday, but Sunday, I can't be doing anything. I just got to study hard, man. I'm struggling with this, bro, as well. My heart is so weak, and one day I will crack, bro, man. Hey, you're not alone, man. I'm here for you, bro. Like real talk, man. If your stream was a little earlier, I could join, my bro. You know me, it's earlier time. So like I was doing a few really, really early in the morning. I was waking up at like 4:30. Oh man, but I recently got promoted at my job, so like, man, dude, it's kind of hard waking up that early and still having a lot of energy, bro. Because those days you work on an office job, man, those days be dragging by sometimes, man. I'm just like, God, wallahi, how am I gonna make it? I used to be super productive. I used to be like working out during lunch breaks and stuff like that, but I kind of lost. I don't know, something happened, and I just don't feel the same. I think a lot of it has to do with I'm just so cluttered with stuff. I just don't feel like I have enough time to truly enjoy a good workout. Not USA time, early UK time. Okay, or yeah, but I'll do it on if you really want a good time. I'll do my open mic around the same time. I'll do it early in the day, probably like around noon. So UK time, plenty of people can stream in and whatnot. But hey, man, dude, hey, so you were talking about being lonely and stuff like that. So real talk, bro. I know you guys have a pretty tight knit in the community in the UK. And you said you were talking to your parents. Your parents were talking to them. I don't know when the last time you might have talked to your parents about finding a partner, but feel free, wallahi, to talk to your parents about how you feel. You seem like you have real good parents, wallahi, and inshallah, hopefully they'll understand and they'll expedite the process and really put themselves out there to helping. Also, man, I know for the UK community, your communities are really more tight knit than the US. So also, don't be afraid to go to your local imam and talk to him about if he can help out and things like that. That's one thing I try to do in the US, but the US is a different ball game. The US is so segregated within so many communities and it's so spread out. There's less of us here than in the UK. And the UK is a smaller country, so it's more condensed. Over in America, it's just like the population is so spread out and it's all over the place. And then you break down different cultures and you got non-practicing and then practicing and more or less. And that breaks down it's hyper competitive in of itself. Like if you're looking for somebody decent, it's going to be very, very hard for you as a guy to find somebody that is marriage that you would probably want to marry or that wants to get married in general too, because a lot of sisters too, they're indoctrinated with the US culture, which is the dating culture. And a lot of them, they don't want to get married when they're, 18 or fresh out of high school or while they're in college and stuff like that. If they do want to get married and they think about getting married, it's like later on in life when they have a career and things like that. And they still want to obviously have company. So they're still out there dating and things like that. So it's very common here. Alhamdulillah, my bro. Inshallah, you would be a good parent. Hey, man, you'd be a better parent than me, man. Honestly, at this point, I'm even willing to be a stepdad, man, because I'm one thing I worry about, man, because my dad was actually, both my parents are kind of hard on me, but my dad in particular was so very, very hard on me, and I understand why he was hard on me. It's not because he hated me. It's because he knew where he came from in life and all the struggles he had, and he wished that I was a better version of himself. And I think I'm going to do the same thing, like, wallahi, bro, especially if I had a son. If I had a son, obviously, I'll be harder on my son than my daughter because I would have expectations of my daughter, and I would say, hey, here's the line, you break this line, and, hey, as long as you do what you're supposed to do, hey, we're cool. But once you go out in the world, just don't bring shame on the family. Just don't do anything crazy, and we're good. But for my son, I would want him to be my legacy. My son would, in my opinion, because I am a man, I would want my son to be a legacy. Like that's the inheritor of my dynasty. Like he's going to carry on my name. He's going to carry on my physical lineage as well. Most likely he's going to be the, you know, the patriarch of his next family and things like that. And I am going to name my firstborn son, if I have one, inshallah, after me. So literally he's going to be what I consider to be my legacy in that sense. Bro, it's a struggle finding a good non-feminist wife. I have the money, but I'm scared to spend it. It makes Zena look easy, like a $20 meal, but marriage is $20K. Bro, don't even get me started on that, bro. And you know what? Yeah, and I tell you what, a lot of these girls out there are getting a Zena out for cheap. And I tell you about the experience that I had with that one. I went on a halal date, you know, interested in a girl for marriage and stuff like that. Granted, I did meet her in a haram environment. I'm not even gonna lie. I met her in a haram environment, or whatever like that, where there was a lot of free mixing and stuff, and there was like alcohol and things like that. So I met her in an environment that was like that. So granted, I should have knew what those intentions were in the long run, at least for her end. And so that being said, yeah, man, dude, she basically laid it out for me. She was like, hey, you can take me home. And it's been a while since I had a date where like a girl basically threw herself out like that. Like a lot of the times in the US, girls act like that, you know, they obviously they know what they want and you know what they want, but they don't want to give it out so easy. They still want to be treated like a lady and stuff like that for the most part, unless they're really, really out there. But most decent girls, even if that's something they want, they're not going to be like, oh, well, hey, just take me home and stuff like that. She was just like, hey, where do you want to go? I could have been like, hey, literally my house was across the street. But wallahi, maybe, inshallah, I have been rewarded for staying away from that. I did have a problem where for a while I was actually still talking to that girl. And obviously I still, I realized that she never was going to be marriage material. So my NAS basically were like, hey, just try to get her to bed. And that never, alhamdulillah, that never happened. I never committed zina with this girl. In and of itself, that's a blessing. But I'm not going to lie and act like, she's beautiful. She was smart. Sometimes I do wish that I did do, unfortunately, what I could have done. But wallahi, you know what I'm saying? I know that I probably got some kind of blessing from not doing that. I know that there's blessings that happen every single day for us that we don't recognize and that we don't validate. Me going to work, safely is a blessing. Me not getting sick and dying is a blessing. Me not, losing all my money is a blessing, Don't be a stepdad, bro. It's complicated raising a man's kid unless it's a widow. Yeah. See, but I could honestly see where marrying a widow, that's for sure. But like, for instance, if it's just a step kid, it's a step kid create. Unfortunately, it's committed out of zina. That says a lot about the person. It's just like, hey, I understand people make mistakes, right? But especially like I gotta say this to sisters, right? If you are going to commit zina, be protected, right? Be protected. Use protection if you're going to commit zina. Because if you're going to commit zina and then you're just going out there, like if you're committing zina with a man, the act in and of itself produces children. That's what happens. So protect yourself not only from STDs, but to protect yourself from having a child with somebody, because all too often a lot of guys, they don't really care about you. They only care about you for one thing. I hate to say this, burst a lot of their bubbles. Like they only want to get in your pants. They see all the nice things, they wow you up, and you guys fall for it every single time, unfortunately. But guess what? It's that's what he wants from you. So just because he gets you pregnant doesn't mean he's going to do the right thing. So protect yourself, Bro, I'm worried I pay so much for wedding dowry, rent, house bills, and she is a bad wife or a feminist. We're not interested in sex. It feels like a gamble. Yeah. That is for real. But that's the thing. That's why you got to have those conversations, man. And bro, and this is a big thing I think that our community needs to talk about. Because believe it or not, I do think there's a lot of sisters that do want to get married, that aren't feminists, that haven't been indoctrinated. They actually want to do things in the traditional light. Like they want to meet a guy and marry him. And I think a lot of things for sisters too is sometimes they're worried about the same things too. It's not about the money that they're worried about. For sisters, it's more like is this guy going to abuse me? Is this guy going to make me feel bad? That I'm not being a good wife. Is this guy going to ruin my reputation? Is this guy, he says he's going to do this and do that for me, but he doesn't do this and that for me. I have his children and he doesn't take care of them. He cheats on me. And then also they have the same needs as us. Like, oh, my husband, let's say I put on a little weight after I have a child. Oh, my husband is not interested in having sex with me. And I have these needs also. I'm going to feel like a bad woman. I'm going to feel ashamed of myself that I can't perform for my husband or incite my husband in that way. Oh, I can't cook good enough. He's not going to like my cooking. I feel like that sisters have some of the same things, just in a different way, the insecurities. But I completely understand where you're coming from. That's why it's good to have a conversation with a sister and the parents and just keep it real, keep it 100, bro. And that's one thing I liked about when I met that girl. We had serious conversations that I never even had with other girls. Like even when I was before I reverted, when I was going on dates, you talk to girls about absolutely nothing. I mean, honest, like when you go on some of these dates, I be talking to girls about absolutely nothing. And that's why a lot of girls, I guess, end up dating guys that they're friends with, because they kind of have actual real connection with. But for me, a lot of the time, I was just talking to this girl and it's just a whole bunch of nothing, just gossip. Just gossip, talking about movies and TV, gossip. And then we talk about the food we're eating and then gossip. Utter meaningless conversations if you consider that, hey, I actually like you as a person. Let me know about actually who you are, so we can get to know each other. All too often, it's because the standard for dating is just getting to know somebody well enough to have sex with them. It's not getting somebody to know well enough to actually build a life with them, unfortunately. Damn, you're right, bro. I never thought of that perspective. Yeah, man. And see, and I'm not a feminist by any shape or form. So I'm not simping for women or anything like that. But I will offer a perspective and also give some pushback for our sisters, bro, because we need each other. Brothers and sisters, we need to stop this gender war. We need to stop this man versus woman thing. I understand that that's the narrative that both sides are trying to do right now. But I do have my stances. Don't get me wrong. I have my stances, and I'm going to stay by that because I am a man. I have had these experiences, and I'm going to stand to that. This is my truth. That being said, I understand that they have some of their needs too. And some of that, unfortunately, and that's why I think some sisters leave, like the community altogether. They leave because they meet a brother, and he's like, oh, this is a pious brother, yada, yada, yada. He can do this, he can do that. And guess what? The guy, goes beside their head. He's beating them. He's mistreating them. He's, doing all this messed up stuff. He's not taking care of their kids. And then so after that, that's also that side of it, Yeah, she was a red flag. She offered, yeah, man, she was a red flag. But dude, she was cute, bro. She was cute. She was a cute girl, bro. I'm gonna leave it there, bro. I'm just gonna leave it there. I got NBA fan in the building. You know what I'm saying? Hey, yo, NBA fan, man, I'm going to put the link in the chat, man. If you want to come on up and you want to chop it up about something, we can. But just keep in mind what I talked about last time. We can't be going too ham on certain topics, if you know what I'm saying, because I ain't trying to get this channel flagged. Hold up. Let me invite. Hold up. Yeah, so that's in of itself. I like to think that I do want a traditional kind of family thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not one of these guys out here that acts like I'm above that. So in of itself, man, let's see, you got new comments. Hold up. Yeah, so my screen is doing something weird right now. I'm trying to add you guys up or add somebody up right now, but it's not happening. Hold up. Let me do some do some magic real quick. Yeah, so MMA boy, I'm gonna put the link in there, man. Just hold on, man, and I'm gonna have you jump on. Okay, so let me try this. All right. So NBA fan, man, if you're still in, come on down. The stream is open for you. So Curly Whirly, you said, "Hey, bro, I remember I had a woman when I was 17, offered to teach me how to kiss, but I'm the line every. Hey, man, you're strong, bro, and you're gonna get rewarded for that, bro. Hey, you already the way you're seeing it, man. You already got money, bro. You're 23, and you say you got enough money to get married. When I was 23, bro, man, I was a bum, bro. I was a bum. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm really glad that you have the confidence to say that as a man, you have enough to do that or whatnot. And yeah, it's a struggle to reject women, bro. And I think as a man, we have a harder than them because there's repercussions if they succumb to their urges, right? They can get pregnant, this and that, everybody knows their business and they get called names and stuff like that. For us, when they offer it to us and it's so easy, especially when they offer it when it's just basically so easy for some guys, especially like they get offered it all the time with little to no effort. You don't have to talk well or anything like that. It's just some guys, they just exist and they just get handed off to them. Sometimes it's like when you reject that, and what I know is people say men can't take rejection. Women can't take rejection from a guy that they like. Like they lose their goddamn minds. Like that's why they doll themselves up. They spend so many hours and hours and hours looking a certain kind of way. For guys, unless we're going to the gym, for us, most of us, we don't really obsess over how we look like that. You know what I'm saying? So for us, we do have confidence. We just go outside into the world and we don't really care about any of that, right? But for them, all too often what I see is they get prepped and do all this stuff and they just think that because they're so spoiled by attention, right? All women, no matter what, the ugliest guy, the guy with money, the good-looking guy, they give these girls at least a little attention a day. So they know that they have options out there. They just don't get the options that they want, unfortunately. And that's a big dilemma for them. They're never happy about what they want. They don't know what they want half the time. So when a guy that they do want rejects them, they lose their freaking minds. They lose their freaking minds. And unfortunately, I'm going to be honest, if you turn down a girl, unless she really, really likes you, she would definitely won't like you after you reject her. Like guys, a girl will reject us and we'll keep trying again and again and again and again. But for them, it's like, this guy doesn't like me. He must be weird. Like he must be gay. Like there's no way a man can turn me down. And that's happened in my personal life where like I turned down a girl and like she completely hated my guts after that. I'm like, all I did was just not have sex with you. Like, why is it a big deal? Actually, one time there was my little brother. I never forget this. My little brother in middle school, a girl beat him up, like started like punching him and stuff like that, jumped him because he rejected her. He was like, hey, I'm not into you. I don't want you. Yeah, girls lose their damn minds off of that, bro. Bro, how do you find the thirst traps over social media? So, okay, here's the easy way. So actually a while back, I believe I told this story sometime or whatever like that. But social media used to get me into trouble for various reasons, right? I had a past. I used to get into fights. I used to get into trouble. I used to beef with people and stuff like that. So, and I used to say stupid stuff online just to piss people off or, and just be a jackass. So, I deleted social media because I knew that wasn't good for me. So I got my boy NBA fan. Let me add it. It's like accountability. Yes, it is, bro. So let me add my boy NBA fan. What up, man?
What's up, bro? How are you?
Chilling, man. Hey, I was seeing you on Mace's. I was on, of course, I was at Ed's channel. I kind of got on the tail end of that. But you know, Edward Anderson, man, he's my boy. That's what's up. And I was on Mace's thing for a little bit, but y'all started going real ham. I started the conversation go pretty heated because my boy the General's in there. You know, when the General's in there, he's gotta be analytical with it. And he's got to shoot down everybody's opinion, you know. And I love the guy, you know what I'm saying? But I don't get that heated about basketball. You know what I'm saying? To me, I understand people, you know, especially black men. We're really passionate about our sports and our music. You know what I'm saying? But like, you know what I'm saying? I ain't going to get involved if I don't have the stats because those guys, they bring out the stats. They're like, he shot.
Nah, they don't bring out the stats, bro. They just talk. But I mean, it's cool though.
Yeah,
you know, it's a good like environment, like a virtual barbershop, you know?
Exactly, man. That's why I miss barbershop culture, bro. You know what I'm saying? I just got done working out. So my hair, you know what I'm saying? You know, my Afro part thing is not as on point. You know what I'm saying? I haven't picked it out. I don't got my comb on me right now. You know what I'm saying? So, but you know, usually, you know what I'm saying? I get it trimmed out, I get it faded on the sides. You know what I'm saying? I get it faded like a skin fade on the side or whatever like that. And then they trim it up and they line it up all even. And then they get a blade razor and they do the part again. So actually, you know, this is on this side. Yeah. They get the part and blade the part again or whatever like that. But I miss, man, they're shooting it up at the barbershop. But sometimes they be going too far, man. They be talking about shit, but not cutting your hair. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's true. Because my barber, he's like, you know how all barbers like they don't have anything to do but just talk crap and cut hair, so they concoct these conspiracy theories about everything. So yeah, I mean, at certain times he gets super carried away, and people are on a time schedule, you know.
Yeah, for me, the craziest one I ever saw was, you know, of course, people like talking about music, and I call it the gay conspiracy theories, right? And because they basically say, "Oh, yo, man, you know your favorite rapper, that nigga gay." Oh, no, I heard.
Yeah, these dudes be tripping, and it's like, bro, they don't even be saying facts, bro. It's funny though, you know. It's a lot of personalities.
Yeah, but that's our shit, man. Because you ever go to a white barbershop, it's completely different. Now Mexicans though, they be doing the same shit though. Mexicans.
I've never went to a white barbershop. Not a day in my life. You have?
Yeah, bro. It's not the same, bro. It's just they literally just sit there and they cut your hair, and they might ask you a few questions like, "Hey, where do you work? Oh, do you have a girlfriend?" But they never go really deep into it, you know, because you can definitely tell like they're not from your culture, so they can only just, I guess, kind of get so deep into it. But they love talking about politics. White barbershops love talking about politics, though. That's why those white people they talking about that barbershop. They talk about politics, like, oh, who are you voting for? Oh, did you see the news the other day and stuff like that? Black barbershops and Mexican barbershops, they like talking more or less about just like stuff going on in their actual life. Yo, man, did you smash that girl yesterday? Oh yeah, boy, you know I did this and did that. Did you get that new car? Did you see that new ride that's coming out? Did you get that new video game? Did you hear so and so's latest album? Oh, did you see the game last night? That's the shit we talk about. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and it's like, I've never been to a white barbershop, but I kind of sense the energy when there's a white person who came into my barbershop that I normally go to. And it's just like a sense of hostility there. You know, and I think, you know, just from a tribal sense, every group wants to stay amongst their own when they can decide, like when it's not driven by like economics or you having to go here for like money to support your lifestyle. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, I don't know if we should force diversity to that extent. You know, there should still be spaces to which everybody could be to themselves or to their own ethnic group.
And you know what? I completely agree, bro. And I used to be the most multicultural person and stuff. Granted, I like learning from all cultures and different ways of life and different philosophies and all that stuff, right? If you look at what I cook, bro, I cook Indian food. I'd be on cooking.
Oh Asian yeah, for food. Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
I cook a lot of shit too.
Yeah. So I'm like, you know, really into learning other stuff. But I will say this, bro. There's no shame in wanting to preserve your culture, bro. And there's no shame in wanting your own spaces, right? And what we see now today is everybody kind of wants to feel like they're entitled to go to somebody else's space. Like, for instance, right? I haven't been overseas since I was a little kid, but I plan on doing a trip to the Caribbean, Central America, and then going to Africa, right? That's going to be my
Yeah,
first national trip.
me
When I go
too.
to these countries, I'm going to respect their traditions, their culture, and their spaces. I'm not going to be like, because a lot of Americans have really bad reputations, because Americans, when we go to other places, we're super entitled because we're used to the multicultural society that we're from. But other places, some of the stuff that we consider normal is not normal. Like you don't go to somebody else's country and spit on the street. Like some countries, like that's a serious, like offensive thing to do, right?
Right, I heard people got like a person was about to be sentenced to execution for that in another country.
Yeah, man. Or for instance, some cultures, right? When you sit down and and you sit cross-legged, if you show your shoe to somebody, that's like wiping your ass and showing them toilet paper. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah,
you're showing your dirty feet to somebody. That's considered very disrespectful, especially when you go to somebody's house. Like how you're supposed to
right.
act when you're in somebody else's house is you're in their territory, you're in their castle. You don't do anything disrespectful. Like you know what I'm saying? Like you sit down when you get offered to get sat down. You only eat what you're offered and stuff like that. You have to show the certain respect. But we as Americans, right? You know what I'm saying? We have a different standard. So I always want to respect that other people, other races, other cultures have their own thing. You know what I'm saying? But I want also those people to understand I want my own thing as well. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, and I think that a lot of Americans, when they go to other places, they look at it as more of a vacation, and there's like a superiority complex that they have with like the habiters of foreign land,
Mhm.
and it's kind of they feel like it's warranted due to like GDPs and things like that. But I mean, you got to be cognizant of stepping on other people's toes and everything like that.
Yeah.
Especially
Go ahead, bro.
where like I mean, yeah, you're an American citizen, but I mean at the end of the day, these people will F you up. Like, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people, they're very serious about like respect and everything like that. So, you just gotta be careful.
Yeah, and I think black people we don't have that bad of a reputation as far as doing that in other countries because we're the bottom class here. So we're always kind of we have to watch ourselves here in our own country, right? So when we go to other countries, we kind of already know that there's certain things we can't get away with in general, right? So, but I noticed on the opposite end, I hate to say it, white people they'd be doing whatever the fuck they want to do. Like you see that remember that guy that went to North Korea? First of all, that nigga went to North Korea where they already hate you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they already hate your ass.
Right,
That's like being a porn star and going to Saudi Arabia. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like people don't want you to be there, right? And then the fact that he thought it would be a good idea based off of a bet and stuff like that to do something disrespectful in North Korea, and then he got fucked up. Like I didn't shed a tear for that guy
What
whatsoever.
happened? Like, what are the like particulars of that?
So this guy, he was like in his early 20s, he was a college student. And North Korea, they actually do allow tourists to go there, but it's a certain amount, and it's like a navigated tour. Like somebody's always watching you, right? It's a navigated tour. The government says, hey, you can go here, you can go here. You can't talk to these people, you can talk to these people. Everything's like scripted, right? So in North Korea, of course, they have a lot of propaganda, right? So he had a friend back home that basically dared him, right? He was just like, hey, if you take a piece of North Korea propaganda and you bring it back to America, I'll pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So he thought it would be a good idea to do. So he took a poster and he tried to steal it. Of course, people already knew he's like the only white guy in a whole city. Everybody's already looking at him. Everybody knows what the game is, and they have secret police monitoring everything. So they took him to jail, of course, and he was going to get sentenced to like life in prison or something like that. Because in North Korea, if you do something disrespectful against their leadership, that's what the punishment is, right?
Yeah,
And they're like, hey, you knew the rules coming over here. Like they brief foreigners when they come there. They're like, hey, here's the laws of the country. You don't do this. You don't do that. And he still did it. And then he wanted when he was getting his court sentencing, he was crying there and be like, yo, this has ruined my life. I'm sorry. And, you like to feel empathy for anybody that's in a messed up situation. But, bro, he had it coming, bro. And, of course, he ended up basically Trump was still president or he had just been president.
so he got pardoned.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, they basically like, hey, he's suffering mental. They were like, he's being tortured there. On top of that, so Trump was like, hey, just release him. We'll make amends. We'll do a prisoner exchange or something like that. So on the way back, when he's getting medical treatment in the U.S., he died from like a brain aneurysm or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's the penalty for that over there. And my thing is like, I don't understand why you want to go to North Korea. You know, like
Exactly.
what is there over there that would intrigue you? You know, because there's nothing for me. I mean, you know, there's a lot for a myriad of different reasons. I think that the Caribbean, certain places in Africa, those are, and then he's white, so some places in Europe, those are way better tourist destinations than North Korea. Like, come on.
Yeah, honestly, like and like I said, this is not a disparaging thing against any people of a particular race, but look at news articles about which tourists are getting the most hell. You gotta say this. So it's gonna serve your group. Like for instance, right? There was one that really this is the worst one. There was an American couple, right? And they believed in their hearts that there's no such thing as bad people, right? They believe like, oh, ISIS, they're not really bad people. They're just misguided, and everybody has good in their heart. And so our mission in life is to go all over the world on a bicycle trip, and we're just going to just open people's hearts up and just show love, right? Granted, that's a great intention. That's a beautiful thing for somebody to believe, right? But in practice, of course, that's absolute bullshit, right? So
Right.
they were going over a trip over to, they were like in Turkmenistan or something like that, and which is right next to Afghanistan, right? So sure enough, they got kidnapped, right? Because they started talking to the wrong people, and people were like, oh, this is a lick, right? And so those people, they were like, oh, these people are American, let's sell them off to the terrorists, right? So they sold them off to the terrorists, and the terrorists were like, oh, Gucci, like we got some people to kill, so they executed the people. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And so I was just like, bro, like imagine like, it was a husband and a wife. Imagine like, bro, you guys could have been on a honeymoon or an anniversary trip, and then you guys are spending the last moments of your life getting your heads chopped off because you thought you could save people. You know what I mean?
So what they wanted them for? They wanted the Americans for ransom,
Yeah.
but they just ended up killing them.
Yep.
Okay, because America wasn't going.
Yeah. So America has really messed up. That's actually why the biggest victims of like ISIS when they were executing people was because the U.S. government stance on hostages, right, or the international community's stance on terrorists, right, is you don't negotiate with terrorists.
Uh,
So if a terrorist captures you, you're kind of screwed. If they, because of course their demands for a lot of these terrorist groups are like, hey, we want $10 million a head, or we want you guys to leave our country. It's something that obviously is not going to happen, right? So when those demands are met, basically there's two options. They either try to negotiate and say, hey, we have a prisoner of yours. We're willing to trade it for one of your people that we have.
right.
Or we're going to send, like, of course, they try to send the special forces in to rescue them. But that's millions of dollars. Often the military is not going to waste its best people like Navy SEALs and stuff like that just to rescue some guy that was an idiot that put himself in a bad situation. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like actually, Japan, for instance, right? There was a Japanese.
Well, it kind of depends on the guy too, right?
Yeah,
like if it was Trump Jr. in 2018, like they're sending everything they got or they're paying a ransom. So I mean, right. So I mean, it kind of depends on it's kind of nuanced and it kind of depends on the situation too. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of messed up unless they keep a lot of prisoners as collateral, right? Or like ISIS terrorists or whatever as collateral, which I don't think that they do. I think they have like a no hostages allowed policy. So they don't have that type of leverage in negotiations like that, you know.
Yeah. I tell you what, actually, one time a Japanese journalist got captured by ISIS. And so Japan, their culture and their government stance on stuff like that is don't put yourself in those situations, right? They say, hey, if a war is going on somewhere, we don't want our citizens anywhere near there. Like, hey, we're going to give you guys a warning. We'll ship you out of there. We'll send you helicopters, plane tickets to get you out of there ASAP, right? That's their policy, right? Because Japan, I don't know if you know this, historically, after World War II, America basically dismantled their military, so they really don't have a strong military to do anything like that. So they're basically like, hey, you're kind of on your own if something does pop off. And so they also have a culture of people are basically ashamed of putting themselves in situations. So, for instance, right, there was a guy that got captured by ISIS and then he got executed. So the family apologized to the Japanese government. The family apologized to the Japanese government
for their person being dumb enough to get put in a situation where they got ransom.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I mean, at the end of the day, there is an inherent ROI. And if the precedent is that, okay, we're going to pay the ransom in those situations, there could be situations in which the capturee or the person who's allegedly kidnapped could cooperate or whatever with the people who are asking for ransom, and then they like split it half. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, you can't really have something like that because Americans would collude based on that precedent. You know.
Actually, that's happened before. There was in the 70s, because you were actually talking about Fred Hampton in the chat at Airware when Airware. Right. So this ties into that same era, right? So there were a lot of super radical left groups during that time. There were like terrorist groups, like there were like the Weathermen and the National Symbionese Army and stuff like that, Black Liberation Front and stuff like that. So one of them was the National Symbionese Army. There's actually a really good movie starring Bing Rames that talks about this group. And so they would rob banks basically, and they're to get money to fund their activities, right? So one of the richest families is the Hearst family, right? And the Hearst is the first Hearst that was like a multi-billionaire, basically, was this guy named Randolph Hearst. He basically helped create the first newspapers, right? The first American newspapers, like he funded the New York Times and stuff like that. Right. So the granddaughter of that family, the heiress, she got caught up and she got kidnapped like from college or something. She was at a college party and stuff like that, and they found her. They kidnapped her and stuff, and they're like, hey, we hit jackpot. We got this freaking heiress. We're going to hold her hostage. And so at the time, right, the government was like, hey, we understand you got the money to pay the ransom, which was like a huge, ridiculous ransom. But they're like, hey, if you give this money to these people, it's not a good look, right? Because we're negotiating with terrorists, right? And then so Patty Hearst actually ended up falling in love with people that were a part of the group. And she actually ended up becoming a terrorist with the group. Like, there's a really infamous photo, bro, of her with let me see if I can screen share this, man. This is a really good photo. Hold up. Yeah, she ended up falling in love with one of the people in the terrorist group and stuff like that. And then she robbed a bank with them a couple of times, and she had a Uzi and everything. You see Patty Hearst.
Right. And I mean, go ahead.
Hold on, I'm just finding the image right now. It's a really infamous image with her with the AK-47, or it's like an AK-47. Hold up, I think this is one right here. All right, let me go screen share. Hold on, share screen.
Can you screen share as like a guest on a panel?
I think maybe so. Hold up. Let me see. Share screen. All right, do you see it?
It's loading.
Do you see the screen share?
Yep.
Oh,
yep. The white chick with the shotgun.
Yeah, that's footage. Yeah, that's footage from the bank heist that she did. Yeah, it was in San Francisco. Yeah.
Oh, crazy, she was wild with it. She didn't have on any face protection or anything.
Yeah, bro. Bro, that guy must have dicked her down so good. Females be going crazy, bro. Females be going crazy for the most dangerous dudes, and you know why, bro? They're piping it down, bro. Crazy,
right? And that's another reason why I'm sorry to say, I don't know what your opinion on this is, but do you think that the opposite gender isn't like equipped to be in leadership?
That's an interesting story. So a lot of countries, believe it or not, have had female presidents and stuff like that. some of them have had policies that are good, some of them are bad. The UK, for instance, I don't know if I still have anybody here in the UK. They had Margaret Thatcher, who was like the female Ronald Reagan, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people hate her. Some people like her down on the conservative side, right? And some other countries have had female presidents as well. So I believe that depending what culture they come from and what time frame, I believe that prior to this wave of feminism and this current era that we're in, yes, a female could be a good leader. But at the same time, with that ideology, it's like they're not going to be held accountable, right? Like, for instance, they're not being held accountable on a social level. So if they get to a position of power, right, and they become, the leader of the free world or something like that, if they do anything scandalous or they do like something that's unethical or they do something wrong or something like that, there's always an excuse that she's a woman. That's the way I look at it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And my whole thing is, I think there are biological limitations on females leading at the same level or on a as proficient level as men. And a couple things that I use to gauge that is the hormones, right? So there is an inherent point of time that each female monthly is not going to be on her P's and Q's, So, I mean, with a situation like that, how can we have somebody who's not always at the peak of their powers leading a group of people when there's a whole other group or demographic that doesn't suffer from the same thing? And then on top of that, physically, right? There's always going to be a value in proof of concept, right? So if for like instance, like if you want a female to be like a sergeant first class within the military, these weaknesses within women relative to men are acknowledged. That's why, like, I don't know if it's the same for your branch, but the PT tests are easier for women than men.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you argue from that standpoint, the first one, as far as because of their hormones and stuff like that, I think it depends on which situation. For instance, I think that there's certain fields where I want a woman more than a guy. For instance, nursing, right? If I'm sick, right? If I'm sick and I'm going through shit, I feel more comfortable with a female because they have that motherly, feminine kind of nurturing, right? I think that's natural, a part of them. So I prefer a female nurse to a male nurse. But if I'm on my deathbed and I need a doctor to break down like what's going down to me, I prefer like a guy being like, yo, hey, I'm sorry, man. You got like 3 days to live. I'm gonna keep it real with you. You know what I'm saying? Hey, make some plans, call some people, this and that, third. You know what I mean? Police officer, right? I don't want a female police like deal with a female police officer because I mean some of them are fine, don't get me wrong, but but that being said, like I don't want like if I want somebody like this, let's say I am in a car accident, right? And I'm the victim, or somebody breaks into my house and I'm the victim. I want a dude up there with fucking biceps and shit like that. You're like, yo, what's going on? You see the perpetrator, you see the suspect, yo, let's go. You know what I'm saying? I don't want somebody to come up in there and I know that the suspect can whoop their ass. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep it real.
What you did was, based off the job descriptions you relate about females, you think that they're natural helpmates. Mm-hmm. Is that what? So you agree with that?
Yeah. See, I'm trying to say it in a way where I'm not putting down women, because a lot of things can be taken out of context. Because I do have females that come to this channel, so I don't want them, and I'm not afraid of them not liking me. They already know where I stand on a lot of things. Right. I do think that it's the leadership position that they have, right? I think that a female could be a good, let's say, principal of a school, right? If she's like, hey, because maybe she's more nurturing and she's able to be around children, and so she's able to navigate children's feelings a lot more from a compassionate level, right? But if it's life or death situation, honestly, I want a man. Point blank, period. If I'm like, especially even like in the military, bro, like if you got the commands, like we're going into battle, like a lot of wars these days, let's be honest, a lot of wars these days, it's not like back in the day where our generals and our kings there on the battlefield with us. You know what I'm saying? I think the world would be a better place if that's the way it was. Like the presidents of the world was like going down range, or they were like in the battlefield being like, yo, like I'm leading you guys. Like I'm here for y'all, right? It's not like that these days, unfortunately, right? A lot of stuff is a bunch of people behind a desk pointing at stuff on a map, figuring things out, right? I feel like guys were better at making critical decisions, not based off of feelings, right?
Right.
Is like if you're going the object of war, and here's I get in this argument all the time with people. The argument, the what war is for is killing people. It's killing people and taking people's land. One usually is a combination of the two, right? It's not about feelings. It's not about feelings. Like if you have a job to do, you say you want to win this war, you have to say, hey, here's the enemy, here's where the enemy's at. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. You can't be concerned about feelings and stuff like that. You can't be concerned, oh, well, you know, is it right? Is it wrong? And this and that. You can worry about that after the fact, right? But you got to make critical decisions. And at the end of the day, it's war. You're going to piss off and hurt people regardless of what you do. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have a krill cut. You have to be cold-blooded. Like, you know what I'm saying? You have to be a cold-blooded, calculated killer. And that's what I think we're bred to be. And that's not a bad thing, because that's what made society, you know, is what it's today. All the stuff, your iPhone, all the technology you use, that was created primarily to help engage in war, whether people believe it or not.
And who was it created by?
I'm sorry?
Who was it created by?
Men.
Right. So, right. So, all right. So here's my another question that I have for you in that, right? Yeah. So you think in theory it makes sense that females will be better, you get better results dealing with females with children in like a prepubescent stage. But what about all the tangible results that say that single father-led households do better than single mother-led households in every aspect of productivity? You know, so like even that in like tangibly in a practical sense, women don't outperform men in even being house like helpmates.
So with a single parent thing, that is wholeheartedly true. And I think one of the reasons why the single dads do so good is because society already doesn't look upon fatherhood as being important. So if a man is willing to be there, he's doing so out of the greatness of his character. He gets no benefit or incentive from society for being there, right?
Right.
So if somebody's a single dad, they're going to be the best single dad that they can be. Unfortunately, in our society, since single motherhood is incentivized, not every mother that has a kid is a good person. And this is actually shocking. There's a good channel called, I think it's AFH Network, and it's a brother. I think he's from Chicago. And literally his entire channel is dedicated to the victims of children victims of child abuse, and like people that actually murder their kids, people that do human trafficking and stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of these situations is single mothers, bro. Whether it be by their own hand or basically they had a boyfriend that they fell in love with and they were addicted to drugs and they threw their kid in the garbage can. Like I saw stuff like that will never make the news, and it's disgusting, bro. And bro, those people, I don't believe in any jail time, bro. You do something like that, you out of here, bro. Hey, death penalty, bro. Like that's point blank, period. That's why actually that's another thing from the death penalty. The reason that the whole anti-death penalty thing is from a female perspective. It's about feelings, right? It's all about feelings. It's not about justice. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And my thing about the whole death penalty, since we want to segue into that, is that I think we should definitely be less lenient. I mean, more lenient towards that, and probably enforce it less, because like a high percentage of people who are on death row end up getting exonerated. You know, and the people who are disproportionately placed on death row are Black men. Right. So I think that we should definitely just be more lenient to that, just considering that's our demographic that's being affected the most by it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So I'm talking from an idealistic standpoint. So let's say a crime. Like, for instance, the justice system in general is not a justice-based system. It's It's not. Like, we got to keep it as black men. We can't sit here and even call it that. It's not about justice. The rich and the powerful. You can look at Harvey Weinstein or the Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, some of those guys, they got trouble. They got slaps on the wrist and stuff like that compared to a lot of other people that even did not even close to stuff they did, right? That being said, I'm like, this is my scenario, right? Let's say I catch somebody without reasonable doubt, like they film it, they get caught on tape, right? They kill a kid just for the sake of it. I don't know if you saw this last year. There was some, and this is really messed up. This made black men look really, really bad with the whole BLM stuff that was going down. There was a black neighbor shot his white neighbor's kid for no reason. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. What do you? So like he had absolutely no justification for it.
No justifications, bro.
So he just shot him.
Yeah,
like walking down the street.
Yeah. The kid was on his bicycle or something like that, and he shot the kid or whatever like that. And
he got death penalty probably then, right?
I don't know. I think he's still in prison. I don't know if it's gone to trial yet or anything like that. I think they started to try to get the mental insanity plea going or something like that, so it's still being litigated. But I would say in an instance like that, that's unforgivable. I would be pro death penalty like that. Like, it's caught on TV. It's not any self-defense thing whatsoever, right? But if it's something like, for instance, I'm beefing with you, right? And I don't like you, right? And I tell everybody, I'm going to smoke NBA fan. You're right. I'm a smoke NBA fan. I don't like the nigga, the X, Y, and Z. And I keep on pulling up to your house and provoking you and pointing my gun at you, right? So one day I come over to your house and I'm about that business and you shoot me first. You number one, that's self-defense. And number two, even if they say that wasn't self-defense, you should not get the death penalty for that just because you killed me, because you at the time felt your life was being a threat. You know what I'm saying? So that's a different standpoint. You know what I mean?
Right. So I've got a question for you. As a person who's like in law enforcement, right? Military is technically law enforcement. I don't know what you do specifically, but that's what military would be considered.
Yeah.
What do you think about a defund or reallocating resources from the police? And are you for or against it? And what practical way do you think it should be done to get the best results?
That's a great question. So this varies from branch to branch. So in the branch I'm at, a lot of the jobs aren't combat heavy. So when you get less combat heavy jobs, you'll get more people from to be honest, more liberal people. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Like, it seems like the more conservative people get the blue collar jobs, like either combat related or maintenance related or something like that. And then the more liberal people get the office jobs, and things like that, to support the logistical stuff, the intelligence jobs. That's why I typically see, to be honest. So that being said, from that standpoint, I think that most people that I surround myself with, their idea for them is they do support defunding the police. I support defunding the police in certain things. For instance, I believe if somebody's having mental health issues, you shouldn't send the cops out there unless it's the last resort. Like, they're definitely in a threat of hurting somebody else, right? And it's going to be extremely dangerous. Yes, get the police, but a lot of stuff can be handled with social workers or community leaders. But of course, unfortunately, especially Black people, like African Americans, our community is in a disarray in a lot of places. So there's no that community help. There's no social workers that are doing shit because our community is so fragmented, right? In other communities, they have like extended family. They have people within their neighbors that care about them. So if they see something like that, they're going to get involved before the cops even show up. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately for us, because our community is so fragmented, it's not like that. So I feel like in situations like that, yes, defund them in that aspect. But in a really crime-infested area like freaking Chicago, where you're dealing with people that don't give a damn about life or death, they're willing to kill people to do what they need to do, and they're heavily armed. Do not defund the police like that in those situations. They need the weapons and the tactics to deal with these kinds of.
But here's the thing. Basically, from what I've researched about Chicago, they kind of have the clean up the mess type. It's not like a hands-on trying to stop the crime type of approach. Basically, what that means is they let the crime go on within the like 2 mile radius where all the crime is happening, and then they come and get the bodies. Like they don't respond to 911 calls within the areas or anything like that. And
Mm.
then with the murders, 80% go unsolved, right? So there is no proof of concept that justice is being served within the community. So
Uh,
why would I invest more money into that?
bro, that is, and you know what? That just you just remind me. So actually, I work with two people from Chicago, and it's an uneasy conversation to have with them. Because of that, for that reason. For instance, I've seen you can get a lot of that stuff that's public information. That a lot of that stuff is public information. So those 911 calls, I've heard 911 calls where the cops are on the intercom saying, "Oh, where's the shooting happen? Oh, we don't go there." Like, you know,
Right.
and they're like, especially if they know it's gang members shooting each other, they're like, "Hey, we're not going there." Like that's just off limits. You know, that's crazy, bro. In America, people are saying that. That's insane.
Right. So that's another thing. So that's why all of these initiatives to help fund the police, there is no tangible benefit for that, because in places where there's less crime, the funds that they have now are sufficient. Would you agree? And then in the places where the crime, where you actually need the police, they're super hands off, and all that money goes to waste. So
Yeah.
there's absolutely no scenario where you need to increase police funding, in my opinion. Would you agree, or what's your opinion on that?
I think they could fund them with training, especially with nonviolent intervention and negotiations with people. Also, background checks, because a lot of background checks I think aren't that extensive for some of these
Right.
people that are being able to get in. So you can put funding towards that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think there just needs to be a lot of police reform. Like, I think that if, first off, I think we need to probably get rid of qualified immunity. You know what that is?
So they're treated different if they commit a crime or something like that.
So yeah, it's sort of like that. So um, I'll come back to that one. I'll explain it after. But another thing I think that we should do is there should be a national database, right? Where every police officer is registered, and it should be public record, right? So every complaint that they have, every infraction that they had, everything like that should be plastered on a national database, easily accessible to every American. Um, and then so if one gets fired from one place, the citizens can't go to another, can't act oblivious to a hire in their department, their local department, because they didn't have the information of how bad this cop was somewhere else. And then they can put pressure on the police force to hire better candidates, right?
Yeah. I agree on that too, man. There needs to be more transparency like that, man, because it's like crazy that you get fired in one department and go to another department and get hired. I think that's kind of crazy and things like that. And I also think another thing that's also creating these situations is, in my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, and this is also kind of think about why in the military experiences certain problems also, right? And I don't give a damn if this is what it is, because the information's out there. Military, we suffer from high suicide rates, a lot of PTSD, issues with alcoholism, divorce rate, you name it. This is public information. Like, you don't. This is not a myth. This is not a conspiracy. And these are being acknowledged, right? But it's in a small segment of society. Like, only 1% of the population has served in the military or serves in the military, right?
Right.
So within the small group of people, you have all these crazy problems. And I think the reason that there's so much of these problems is because, this is my personal opinion, society doesn't value these people.
Oh, definitely not.
Society doesn't value like the wars that I hate to say it, the wars that a lot of Americans. It's not like World War II where you're like there's Nazis and they're going to take over the world and you're sending guys off and then they get their war heroes. They come back, their girls waiting for them. You know what I'm saying? Still back home, and she was faithful, not getting fucked by a bunch of different guys. And this guy gets a good job when he gets back. Everybody thinks his whole town shows up from when he comes back from the war. They're giving a pats on the back, you know what I'm saying, and say what a good job he's done. That's not happening anymore. And it's unfortunate that it is the way it is for various reasons. I'm not going to get into that because that involves all politics and all that stuff, right?
Right.
So I feel like the same thing is this with the police, right? The police have very similar rates of issues with amongst them, right? Alcoholism, PTSD, depression, different mental problems and stuff like that. Their relationships don't last. They have a high divorce rate, high domestic violence rate, all this kinds of stuff, right?
Oh yeah, their domestic violence rate is off the charts.
Yeah, and that being said, I think a lot of it has to do with. And this doesn't excuse those things, just like how there's things in the military. It doesn't excuse these things. You know what I'm saying? The reason that I'm saying this is because I think that now, right, in our current culture, and granted, police have a bad reputation for a reason, right? And so I'm never going to dismiss why people hate the police. Because I can tell from my personal experience, bro. Dude, for a long time period of time, I literally saw a cop car pass by, I was spat at it. That's sometimes because of the experiences that my friends went through, my family went through, and I went through. But I had good experiences with cops too. At the same time, I had a cop that legit gave me a second chance. Like he caught me red-handed doing something I wasn't supposed to do when I was a kid, and he didn't take me to jail. He was just like, "Hey, I give you a second chance right now. Just drop whatever you have on you right now, and go back to school." I even still walked back to school with what I had on me, and he still let me go. He still let me go. I completely lied to him and stuff like that. And he could have followed me back into school, caught me a second time and stuff like that. And so, I still understand that people are people. You can't judge everybody. But that being said, society doesn't reward good police officers, right?
I agree with that. So I think that there should be incentives, right, for a police officer to do a better job. So I think that they should get more public adoration and stipends or whatever due to their exemplary performance. It's got to be exemplary. It's not just for an aggregate performance. You get a bonus or anything. But I also think on the lower end, if you're lower end in terms of proficiency or public approval of your job, right? Or you know what I'm saying, if how the constituents grade interactions with you, if it's on the lower end, there should be a penalty for you being subpar at your job, which you're dealing with the people who are paying your paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. You dealing with the public it's a privilege, And if you're not performing up to par, like there should be something that you'd have to pay for underperforming in that aspect.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. And one thing that I think about a lot too is I always watch those cop movies because I love crime movies, right? I love like gangster movies, crime movies, all that stuff. Right? And I always end up, like for instance, in Training Day, I was on Denzel's side. And because real talk, it's like, look at this is my personal opinion, especially on crime and the drug war. Look at how much the amount of drugs and the money that's being seized, and it's not solving anything. Like if you were a cop, if you were like a DEA agent or a detective and you're busting people for drugs and possessions and you saw all that money, millions of dollars, you're telling me you're not going to take a little bit of that? And you knew you could get away with it?
Here's my thing. I don't respect dirty cops, dirty prosecutors, dirty law enforcement in any aspect. Because here's my thing, right? If you think that the ends justify the means always, and you want to disregard policy, go into the private sector, be a vigilante, but there are, you know what I'm saying, because you be the person, it's pretty ironic and hypocritical for you to be the one to enforce the law based off of them not following an intricate set of rules when you yourself aren't abiding by those same rules. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So they actually gave us this scenario when I was in training one time before I got promoted, and they said, "Here's a scenario. You catch somebody doing something, a terrible crime, like they murder somebody, they're doing somebody wrong, right? And this happens actually sometimes in wars, right? Because there's rules of engagement, right? So somebody could be they're a sniper, right? And there's a local sniper. You just see people get capped all the time, right? They're getting capped, they're getting their heads blown off, yada yada yada, right? And so in the rules of war, right? Let's say I'm gunning down your people, right? I'm freaking Call of Duty, just knocking down everybody you work with, and you're the last person that's on the team, right? You come up and you find me, right? And I run out of bullets, and so since I run out of bullets, I'm saying, hey, I give up. Do you know what you have to do?
So you're sick. Of course, you suggest killing them in that situation, and I think
you legally have to take me prisoner.
Oh, really?
You legally have to take me prisoner. I'm not. If I give up my weapon, and I'm out of ammunition, and I'm not a threat to you anymore, you have to take me prisoner according to the rules of war. Would you do that after I killed all your friends?
So again, there's ways that you could frame that situation, right?
And that's what happens. A lot of people get in trouble for that. Actually, Trump.
How would they find out though? Are we really on a battlefield? Are we like checking bullets? And then you could argue that you didn't know he ran out of bullets. So I think that how would you say that situation skews morally? Do you think that how do you think that that would align morally? Like, would you be in the right morally for killing a guy like that?
See, with me, I at this point in my life, I realize I have to be practical, and I understand human nature, and I think that we're not machines, right? We have feelings, we have emotions, and if we go through traumatic experiences, we don't do the right thing sometimes, right? For somebody's hungry, right? If somebody's hungry, which to me, like true hunger is a traumatic experience. Like you're starving, right? Like for real. Let's say you haven't eaten in a couple of days. You're losing your mind. It's wrong to steal, but somebody's going to steal and do anything they can to get food, right? That's what human beings are going to do. If you lose all your friends and somebody murdered all your friends, and you witness that, people die in your arms, that's a traumatic experience, and you see the person responsible, and because the law says you're supposed to show mercy to that person, you're going to do that. And the way that war works, right, is because technically what he did wasn't a war crime. What he did was completely legal in the rules of war. Like the rules of war is if somebody is armed, you have a right to kill them, like point blank, period, right? So he said, hey, your friends were armed. They were walking around with guns. I shot them. I killed your friends. So, hey, I give up. I'm going to get put in a prisoner of war camp. And usually what happens after the end of war is you get released. Like you get released after when the war's over. He's going to go back home and chill. And I know for myself, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'll straight up. I would blast him, like point blank, period. Like I wouldn't be man enough to give him that mercy. Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? Like to my detriment. I know that I'd probably get in trouble, but I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I let this guy free, you know?
Right. But then, I think that there's legal methods of torture within war too. Right. So if you really wanted to get some type of solace and enjoyment from his suffering, the best thing might be to keep him and, you know what I'm saying, take him back to the camps and then do whatever you need to do to extract information, and you might get some morbid sense of joy from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get asked a lot of moral questions like that when it comes to things, and and thank God I never had to make that decision, and I got a little time left in, before my contract is up. I'm probably not going to stay in, so hopefully, with the new leadership, no wars are going to start. Knock on wood, right? So hopefully, no, I never get put in that situation, right? That being said, I mean, you get asked all kinds of moral questions like that. There was one, for instance, it was like your kid has a incurable disease, right? And this doctor creates this vaccination or this medicine that can completely cure your kid. Like, and he's the only guy. He just invented it, right? But he's charging so much money that your insurance won't pay for it, and that you will never be able to have enough money to pay to buy that. And your kid has X amount of time to live from the window from when he has to take that medicine to for it to be effective to save his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be moral to go rob that guy and steal his vaccine that's in limited supply, grant you, so there's only a certain amount of people that have access to this medicine, to be selfish and take that for yourself as opposed to letting somebody else that has the money have it for their child?
Right. So I think that everybody, to a certain extent, when really put in a situation like that, operates from a hedonist lens.
Mm-hmm.
So, they'd obviously do what would make them the most happy, which was have their kid live, right?
Yeah.
And I think everyone, when put in that situation, would do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the morality coming from a person not specifically in that situation will probably lead you to say that you should, you know what I'm saying, respect the wages that, because it took a lot of brain power to come up with something like that
Mm-hmm.
and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I kind of embrace like the dark triad in terms of morality and like Machiavellianism and everything like that. So I mean,
Machiavellianism. Okay, man, that's what's up, man. Machiavelli that's the realest book I think written by that understands human nature and and success and how to maintain power than any book ever written. Period.
right. And I read a lot of like Robert Greene, like 48 Laws of Power, stuff like that.
Right on.
So I mean, and like Art of Seduction and stuff like that. So my thing is, there are necessary steps needed to succeed in life that might not always be viewed the best morally from an outside figure.
Uh-huh.
Right. So you personally need to weigh what's the most important to you.
Mm.
So what's your opinion on it?
That's true. And I think that the one thing I did like about The Prince by Machiavelli is it really, this is the thing about morality, bro, is if you have an image of how the world should be, you are going to have to do immoral things to get to a point to where you have the power to do that. That's why I think about politics, right? Like politicians, I think the reason they get corrupt is not because they're inherently bad people. I think a lot of these people are good people, and then they have good intentions, and they say, "Hey, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to create laws that make equality or justice or whatever you like to call it, and then the world's going to be a better place. That's going to be my legacy." But in order to get things done, they have to sacrifice their moral integrity. They have to sacrifice who they are as individuals in order to get laws passed, in order to get reelected, and all these things. And I mean, that's why you see, for instance, it's whenever there's a debate, like when people are running against each other, they talk all this crap, they air each other's dirty laundry, they do all these low blows. But when they get elected, they shake hands and act like it never happened.
Right.
It's like their morality in those situations, people, you have to use whatever tools they have at the time to do what they need to do. You know what I mean?
Right. And do you think, here's a question, here's something that I've been pondering pretty lately. Do you think that Black people are held back by morality? Right? Because I think that we overly demonize it, but when you actually look at trends, like so look at the framework of how America was founded, right?
Yeah.
How would you judge that on a moral spectrum? And then even if you want to go more contemporary than the inception of America, what about like how wealth was sustained by families within America, right? Like if you look at the all of the owners of the NFL teams, you know that money initially came from the mob.
Yeah.
Right. So what's your opinion on that?
I think historically we were moral, but I think if you look at what's going on right now in our culture, we're definitely not moral. Like whatsoever. Like, and
Okay.
this is not a shade to the average black person. I think that we have a really bad rep, and the average black person is just doing whatever they can to survive in this world. And if they have a family, they're trying the best to provide for them and raise them right. That being said, I gotta keep it a buck from what I see, bro. And this gets people's feelings. So be it, bro. What is considered black culture? Granted, other cultures have immoral stances too, but our culture is like the mirror the world holds up to say this is a moral culture. Baby mama culture, like hypersexuality. You know, we're the most hypersexual culture. You know what I'm saying right now, like selfishness. You know, material greed, like hyper selfishness and material greed, which is what the rap game is. Hyper violence, which is what like drill music is. You know what I'm saying? Ignorance, being proud of being ignorant. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, I grew up with niggas that was proud of being ignorant. There was like I got made fun of for reading books, bro. Right. I never saw Mexicans do that to each other. I now saw Asians do that to each other. I never seen any race or group of people tease other people for being smart.
Yeah, that's inherently toxic, right? That in specific. But I think when you talk about our culture or whatever like that, it being basically the poster boy for everything negative, I think we have to take into account that we don't control our image. So that's not totally reflective of the ideals that we value as Black people.
Yeah.
And again, like, yeah, a lot of it is not positive, but a lot of it is a reaction to the environment, right? So, like, again, poverty breeds crime. Black people were disproportionately put in those situations not by their own doing. So, I mean, it's easy to judge a situation like that, but I think there needs to be more nuance and blame placed on the people who put Black people in those positions due to prejudice and racism.
Yeah.
I think that's more. So the cause of that is more moral than the effects, in my opinion.
I feel you. I feel you. So if you take in our history in this country, I would say that. But if you look at, for instance, the motherland, going even back to the Egyptians did a lot of things that were considered immoral. You know what I'm saying? And things like that we look upon modern times, right? Like back then that was normal. Like, you know, we forget that a lot of the things that we consider problematic, like, you know, we look at social norms and how they're all changing. Like there's a lot of things that in ancient cultures or in tribes in Africa that we look as African Americans as being morally abhorrent, right? You know, on different levels. And I'm not going to really get into that because that's a long, huge history. We can compare it to European culture, which I think European culture is a lot worse.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, have you heard about Rome?
Oh, and Greece and all that stuff, man. These guys were celebrated pedophiles. Yeah. I mean, they pretty much put out there. Yeah,
that's why I wonder, like, why did you bring up Africa first? But like, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm just saying if you say us as a people, right? So yes, from the people that put us in this situations, we're definitely more immoral than them, hands down. So I agree with you on that standpoint. So yes, I do believe that maybe we missed out on doing certain things. And I see this. I don't know if you follow Ramil's channel. Ramil broke this down several times. He talked about different races have classes, right? And they acknowledge that there's class, like there's the white underclass, there's the trailer trash, and know, all that stuff. Every race has its underclass. And that's the way, unfortunately, I think that human beings are always going to be. I think true equality is never going to exist. As long as human beings live on this earth, we're tribal. There's going to be people that, I mean, look at the manosphere. We're literally a tribe. We're a tribe of black men that say, hey, here's what we stand for, and we're going to look out for our own interests, right? That being said, I do think that now these days we're not taking advantage of what other groups do. Not that we should compare ourselves to other people, but for instance, like when it comes to gentrification, why aren't we gentrifying our own neighborhoods? Like, I hate to say it, like, I think about this all. My dad owns properties, bro. My dad owns apartments, and he gives people in the neighborhood so much a benefit of doubt. Like, he loves his people, so people pay rent all the time. He won't evict them until like way, like he'll give them almost a year before he evicts them.
Why aren't we gentrifying ourselves? Hold up, go back to that.
Yeah. So our neighborhoods are being gentrified by other races of people, right? They put corner stores, liquor stores, they buy up the block and they renovate it and they turn it into hip coffee houses that have $10 cups of coffee and stuff like that. That's what's happening in Brooklyn. That's what's happening.
I understand that, but I understand all that. Yeah, like my neighborhood's a little bit being gentrified. Like it was totally black. Now there's all these white people and soccer moms skating and shit. But yeah, I'm like, what do you mean? We should have gentrified our own neighborhood, or do you think that we should have maintained ownership within our own neighborhoods? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So what I'm saying, right, is let's say I'm not from your neighborhood. I didn't grow up in your neighborhood. We're both black, obviously, but I did not grow up where you grew up. I'm not from your block. I'm not from your neighborhood whatsoever, right? I amassed money for whatever means, right? Whether it be legal means, like I worked a job at a 9 to 5 and I saved up enough money. I worked a white collar job. I worked for a corporation or an entrepreneur, or let's say it's illegal means, which is a lot of American history is the mob, illegal activities, gambling, whatever like that. I invested in that and I made enough money. So, hey, I go to your neighborhood and I see all the dilapidated houses, a lot of the property value is down. I say, hey, your neighborhood's going to crap anyway, and we at least are the same skin color. So I tell you what, I'm going to buy this place up for cheap, and I'm going to evict all these people that ain't paying rent on time, and I'm going to turn this into a hip coffee shop that's going to have expensive-ass coffee that nobody's going to drink but people that have money. Would you want me to do that? Would you prefer for me to do that with you than somebody else?
A black a black person who gentrifies instead of a white person. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Or a non-black person? That's fine. I don't. But where are these people gonna go?
I don't know, man. That's like a lot of entrepreneurs say. All these entrepreneurs, they say the same thing. Hey, that's their problem. I hate to say it, like that's literally what they come across. It's like, hey, my thing is about making money and keeping money in the community. Like let's say a few people get evicted, right? A few people get evicted from that space, but guess what? I provide thousands of jobs in the neighborhood.
Right, I agree with that, and that definitely it wouldn't be totally ideal, but it'd be more ideal than having it gentrified by outside force. Mm-hmm. And I think that another thing, what's your opinion on trickle down economics?
Ooh, I believe that corporations in the top 1% should be paying a lot more taxes, and those taxes those funds, first off, there should be transparency of where all those taxes go to. First off, but yes, Jeff Bezos, people like that should pay a lot more taxes, or if they don't want to pay more taxes, they should give raises to their people that are at least similar to the profit margins that they make annually, and give better benefits for those people. That point blank period. Now, trickle-down economics was really started by the Reagan era of conservatives, where they believed, hey, the top 1% are the job providers, and by them making the maximum amount of profits, eventually that wealth is going to trickle down to their employees and things like that. Now, unfortunately, it didn't happen, right? So you can't force legally people to do that unless you say, hey, you got to pay more taxes,
Right. And my thing is like, trickle down economics is not what we should practice within the black community. No, I think that is what we should practice within the black community, because I think within the black people more than everyone else, there's a sense of morality and a sense of responsibility from the top to sort of help the poor, rather than with white people or Asians or something else like that. Do you sense that or not?
You know what? I'm going to agree on that. I do think that we have more empathy and compassion to people and where they come from, because a lot of us have such a collective experience. Like, we're only one generation away removed from poverty. Like, your parents may not have been in poverty, but your grandparents were in poverty. Like, everybody at the end of the day can trace their lineage in being Black American to slavery, right? At one period of time, we started from the ground, the ground zero. Most
Right.
of us, so we have a little bit more empathy from that. In a sense, it's kind of like, when certain immigrants came here, they can say, when the Italians first came here and stuff, they said, you see in all those mafia movies, right? They're like, I remember when my dad was in Sicily and he came to this country, he didn't know how to speak English, and he worked in a factory and he busted his ass. And everybody that, I grew up in my neighborhood, all of them had the same experience, and we all grew up, and that's how we think about being Americans, right? That's how Black people think about, right? We think about slavery like, hey, we were brought to this country as slaves, we did X, Y, and Z, this is what we went through. So we have more empathy because ours was a lot more dire and straits than everybody else. And so we have more compassion to one another based on the economic situation. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Right. So just based on that, I think that there's an inherent um, there's an inherent virtue of hoarding your wealth once you get to a certain level that's not practiced as much by blacks. Um, and that's the reason why we don't have as much wealth as other groups too. And then we're just frivolous with it as well.
I agree. I agree that on that, bro, because it's like, I notice how other communities operate in particular. For instance, like Asians, right? Their countries, in their home countries, poverty is like terrible. Like India, Pakistan, China, Vietnam, Cambodia. A lot of those countries, people are in real dire straits, and the wealthy people of those countries, right? They may give to charity every now and then and philanthropy just to make themselves look good, but on the average, they're not really giving out that money and giving back. To be honest, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
For the most part. And yes, sometimes it's our detriment. Like I look at all these Black celebrities, whether they be athletes or entertainers and stuff, and they go out of their way to like say, I'm giving back, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And there's really not much that's being shown for it as far as in the long term, because in my opinion, charity is never going to solve poverty. You have to
Right.
change the systems, right? You have to change the systems and give people opportunities. You imagine this. It's like that old saying. It's like, you give a man fish, he can eat for a day. You teach a man to fish, he can eat for the rest of his life.
Right. So that, and I agree with that. So I think that I think that the methodology in which we give back needs to change amongst the upper class of blacks, meaning that basically, right, we should look at it more as investing in blacks that have potential to be at the place where you are later, rather than just overtly giving, in which the money that you have is not going to be sustainable for a group or a community, right?
Mhm.
So I think that, well, you know what I mean. Like, have you seen Shark Tank?
Oh, of course, I love that show.
All right. So I think that, you know what I'm saying, rich blacks should come in as investors. But if you look at how Shark Tank processes evaluations and everything, they try to make a bargain to where they're getting more than the value that they're actually putting into the company, right? So
Mhm.
they could have like a $1 million evaluation, but what they're trying to do is they want to give 100,000 for 20%. So that's halving the evaluation that they said, right? I think that we should probably be more lenient on the evaluations, but that concept should stay, instead of just blatantly giving money and we're not even really caring where it goes, you know?
Definitely, man. I wholeheartedly agree, man. That's something that's really, that's real or whatever like that. And I think the thing also with Black people is we're too involved with competition and not cooperation. Like we have this this is manufactured. I don't think this is natural. We have this natural competition to where we compete against other people and we sabotage the efforts of others in order to get to the top, right? I've even seen, especially like, I hate to say this, bro, Black people, even when we work with each other, bro, there's like we're when tragedy strikes, right? Black people band together and we all cry and hug it out and stuff right there, right? But on a day-to-day basis, Black people, we sabotage each other, and we do whatever, we stab each other in the back in order to get a top. And it's really bad amongst gender, like Black men and Black women. It's really, it's even worse, right? Like, black women sometimes when they're put in a position, they kind of like have it out for themselves as being because they look upon themselves as being a minority within a minority, and they look out for themselves. They don't look out for their fellow brothers and stuff like that. That does happen, right? You look at celebrities and stuff like that. Instead of them banding together and coming up with actual comprehensive solutions, a lot of the times it's just talk. You know what I mean? It's like, because guess what? You're afraid of working with somebody because you're worried about getting screwed over. I mean, Diddy, all these black entrepreneurs, CEOs, they legit could change the whole black community overnight if they had a comprehensive plan. But instead, a lot of the time is what they're doing is they just talk and exchange ideas, and then they go over to white people in the greater society and say, hey, here's an idea we have, but they don't cooperate together because they view each other as competition.
Right. And I think, it's kind of cyclical in the sense that within the black community, a lot of people who've had their careers manufactured by an external source from the black community come back to backstab the black community. And I think that precedent is shown throughout generations, and I'm not going to call out any names, but it seems like
I know you're talking about, and trust me, you don't need to say it to me. All right, I know what people you're talking, what kinds of people you're talking about, and stuff like that. And that's something that, bro. It's kind of sad that we can't even say these things because it's apparent. Like if you look at who runs certain industries and stuff like that, it's already kind of common knowledge. But go ahead.
Right, and even within the manosphere, there's a certain oligarch that's switching what is actually valued within the manosphere, and I'm not going to go too far on that, but
I'll be really curious about. So that you brought the manosphere in relation to this conversation. What kind of conversations do you think are being steered in the manosphere that you think are from an external force? If you just to be curious.
No. I'm not saying anything from the manosphere. I'm saying like people in Hollywood that are propped up, and it's not really grassroots where the support starts. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not like black people aren't initially supporting the person and then they rise up and represent the black community how the black community would want to be represented. It's a person who's put in a position to represent the black community that doesn't have the black community's best interest.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly think that, dude. That's why, and I noticed that it's real hard to kind of like have small talk with people outside of using the entertainment media as being something that's common as being a reference to kind of get to know people. Like for instance, bro, I have a Netflix, but it's my ex-girlfriend's Netflix account. I don't pay for Hulu. I don't pay for HBO. I don't pay for any of that stuff anymore because a lot of the stuff they've been coming out with recently is just super suspect. Like I'm like just wow, you guys are just coming out with all kinds of stuff, and it's obvious. It's not a conspiracy theory what agendas they're trying to push, but it's obvious, right? It's like it's not even a hint. It's not like they're trying to tell stories. It's like they're trying to control how you believe or what convictions you have. You know what I mean? And so,
and that's why I'm like, if I'm gonna have kids, I'm not raising them in America. It's to that point. Like, I mean,
yeah,
because if you think about it, right, like what they're trying to teach in public schools, right? I don't plan for my kids to be in public school anyway. But then what? Like, are my kids not going to be allowed to watch TV too? Because they're pushing all this Fruit Soup community stuff on like Disney, on like Cartoon Network.
I never heard it described like that. And so I'm not laughing because you're good with the wordplay. Like you'll find a way to kind of like say. I know it's obvious what you're saying, but you got a new noun or a different verb to describe the said group of people every day. I just like that's why I deleted my last one, bro, because
do you think that was a bad one?
There's a few people I know that I know what stances they have, and I know if they saw that, they would. Oh boy, dude! Like I would.
Was that a bad one or what?
that, you know. And I'm not saying that you're wrong for having these beliefs whatsoever. We actually agree on a lot of different things. It's just that these days that's taken from, oh, you hate these people because of X, Y, and Z. But there's actually people amongst these group of people that don't even agree with how some of the things are being presented, right? It's like, hey, I just want to live my life and do what I want to do, but I could care less about teaching kids this stuff, you know?
Right. And that's my thing. I think pushing it at such a young age, it kind of unnaturally opens prepubescents to an idea that they would have never even thought of, or the idea of sexuality way earlier than a parent would want them to learn it.
I agree. I even agree with, for instance, even from normative, let me put my parentheses, quote, normative stance on sexuality. I don't want my kids watching fucking porno at 5.
Right. And that's what Cartoon Network is.
Yeah. I don't want them to know what the G. I don't want them to know what the G spot is, or what this position is and that position is at age 5. That's not right. That's disgusting. And they want and the people that I noticed that support this, like there was somebody that I worked that at one time I was like, I consider them pretty close with, and I'm not going to say that, how I know what relation they have with me and stuff like that. We're not as close as I would like for us to be, because a lot of it has to do with solely like their political beliefs and stuff like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm very strong in my convictions, and I'm not going to just let somebody say off the wall stuff that I don't agree with and just say it like I agree with them. That being said, so when the movie Cuties came out, he actually defended that shit.
Oh,
and I was like, bro, no, that's wrong. That's disgusting. There's no way. And he was like, but what about this movie? What about that movie? I'm like, in hindsight, yes, some of those things are questionable, but this movie in particular is straight up perverted. And I know I don't need to see it to understand it, because I tell you what, by seeing it, because it's being streamed, I'm supporting it. I don't have to pay for something to support it, to understand what it's about. If I can go Wikipedia and read the freaking description of what the plot line of the whole movie is, I don't need to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's disgusting. It's problematic. And the reason they doing that is that Hollywood's trying to enforce what more European style norms of sexuality is. And you've always looked at what's acceptable in Europe. A lot of stuff is super perverted. The Greeks and the Romans were debaucherous.
Right. And that's another thing. When you draw parallels between Roman society and what America is devolving into, the trends are eerily similar, right? And right once they started implementing and normalizing, I don't know if we can say the P word on here. I don't know if you want to say that.
Oh, you can say the P word there. Yeah, I don't got no love. I don't care if somebody gets offended because we call them for what they are, and people that exploit children for their own preferred desires. If anybody wants to get offended over that, come see me, because I have all the smoke for you. So
right. I mean, once they started embracing like pedophilia, and I don't know if this is wrong, but like non-natural, I'm not gonna
get out of there.
I don't even know what to say, because I mean, how homos, that's not normal, but non-biblically condoned things.
You actually, so that's interesting that you say that, because even I took a human sexuality class. Granted, people that say that find out about my educational past are like, oh, it was a community college. Nevertheless, it was a psychology class. I don't give a fuck. I consider it that was valid. It was an actual psychiatrist that taught the class. So there it is, right? So yes, there's a discussion of what is, quote, heteronormative behaviors, right? And so literally people that are even on that spectrum use the term heteronormative as being, we're not, quote, normal. Like if you look at the word, the Q word, which is a part of the acronym. I'm not going to say what the acronym is. The Q word means not normal, right? The Q in that acronym, if you look up the definition of it, it means like aloof, weird, different. That's what that actually means. So that's interesting that you use that as a paradigm. And I think it would be a different thing. Like, for instance, right, here's my stance. Here's my stance. I've reached a point, right, where in the back in the day, I had my fun. You know, I didn't say I had like this crazy body count and stuff like that, but I had my fun. I was with this girl, that girl, blah, 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 right? I understand that even though I was having fun, that shouldn't be, if everybody did what I did, society would crumble, right? Society would crumble overnight. Like, we can't, promiscuity should not be the norm, even for heterosexual people, right? That being said, because there's repercussions for that. Like, I don't have any babies and stuff like that, and I don't have any crazy STDs or anything like that, but it is what it is, right? That can't be, if that was the norm for every single guy was doing that and every single female was doing that, society would be destroyed overnight. Nobody would be settling down and having stable families, all that kinds of stuff, right? That being said, I think it's really interesting. It would be one thing if it was like, hey, I like somebody that is of the same identity as me, and I fell in love with them, and I want to be with this person in a long-term relationship. But some of the stuff that I see, especially since I live in the Bay Area, I'm going to be honest, this is like the capital of a lot of that stuff, and it's very hypersexual. It's like, just go and like hook up with as many people as you want to, and it's not about, they say it's about love, but it's about lust. And that's where that's why I draw the line. It's like, I don't even want that for heterosexual people. Like, granted, it's good to have sex every now and then, but if like your main concern in life is having as much sex as you can get, like we already have it in our community, right? Like that's where baby mama culture comes from. All these girls are freaking are super fast at 14. They're already having sex with X, Y, and Z guys and stuff like that. Before they graduate from high school, they're pregnant. You know what I'm saying? That's a result of that same kind of mindset.
Bro, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. So like my first day of freshman year, it was like right after lunch, Spanish 1. There's like this chick that was like third trimester pregnant, walking into ninth grade, bro. And that's crazy. Because my school is not, it's like a mixed school. It's like a lot of like, there's like a lot of every group is represented in it. So it's like a lot of diaspora Africans, you know, who they're great academically. You got whites, you got blacks, you got the cream of the crop of American blacks. But I mean, now it's crazy. And it's like there was a spectrum of outcomes, right? So one person I sat by, she was like pregnant first day of ninth grade. And then the other person I sat by, sophomore year, she's going to University of Michigan full scholarship. So I mean, you know, there was a spectrum of results, but it's like, yeah, this culture, you know, of over sexualized people, is it hits us the worst. But I don't necessarily have a problem with people having sex as long as it's responsible, right? And I think so. Stats show that people are actually having less sex nowadays, but I think the thing was, there was an incentive within the black community, i.e., shame, like not wanting to be shamed, that kept people sexually responsible in the sense that you don't create a child out of wedlock or something like that. So there's no more shame in the community, leading to sexual deviancy happening more, right?
Yeah.
And the women.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. You can. I was just
I was gonna even say, if you look at some of the commercials now, I've even seen this on YouTube now, where they're trying to destigmatize HIV, right? And it's like because they got a lot of medicines out there. Actually, California passed a law where if you're non-detectable, you don't have to let somebody know you have HIV, which I think is disgusting, right?
Right.
Because just because you're non-detectable, let's say you become detectable or you stop taking your medication, whatever, like that, you know, does it matter then? Blah, 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 blah. And in general, it's just, I also think it's messed up that there's actually people like on YouTube, there are actual HIV YouTubers that are being like, oh, I'm not detectable. I shouldn't have to tell you. But if I have herpes and I have sex with somebody and say, hey, I don't have a flare up, you can't get it from me, it's none of your business, and somebody finds out, I can get in trouble for that. Because just because I'm not, quote, detectable or not showing symptoms, but I know I have it, I can still be liable. They call it sexual battery. That's what Shia LaBeouf got in trouble for. Shia LaBeouf is basically,
Yeah, I know
he got sued by FKA Twigs for sexual battery. And what sexual battery is usually his relation into you do some kind of foreplay, you go too hard, or you give somebody STD. That's considered sexual battery. So, and that's kind of crazy that they kind of normalize having HIV. Like that's not normal. Like the HIV disease was spread by 3 different things: blood transfusions, intravenous drug use, and
homosexuality.
I didn't say it. You said it. I didn't say it, bro.
What is that like? Can we not say that? Like, what words do you not want to say? All right,
I'm just gonna say.
Bro.
So people of that community did not create the disease. However, according to the data, they are especially between male on male. This has been, and this is openly disputed. Especially in the beginning, they were disproportionately affected by it. For various different reasons. And unfortunately now, especially what's going on in certain African countries, right? Obviously in these African countries, they're not participating in those activities, but they're still suffering from HIV. I think that their situation is different than what is over in America. I think a lot of the stuff happening in America is directly related to drugs and unsafe sexual practices. That's what I'm going to say. Unsafe sexual practices. And Africa, a lot of that has to do with, to me, it seems like a conspiracy. Like in Africa, it seems like HIV in Africa is the direct result of genetic engineering. Like that was put there. Like that was. What do you mean by that? I think that especially one of the biggest countries that has the highest per capita HIV rate is South Africa. And you look at, of course, in South Africa, it's the black people in South Africa that have the highest rates of HIV. And I think that if you look at the history, especially of South Africa, a lot of that had to do with the apartheid regime, and the white population, the white minority was always afraid of being taken over by the blacks. So they actually, this has been proven, kind of how like drugs were put in our community, but it was even worse. So they put drugs in the African community, they put alcohol in the African community, and in the early 80s, when the first place in Africa that they started finding HIV was in South Africa. And I think that they purposely put it out there to affect people willingly. And they knew that within a smart, like people in poverty that don't have access to healthcare, they're more prone to spread something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Because blacks in South Africa, they're like doing the worst out of everybody on the continent. Mm-hmm. So basically, in South Africa, they're pushed to the bottom of the social hierarchy, and that's shown through every rate of productivity, like education, crime rates, poverty, and then in Africa, they're more clever with the racism too. So they divided like lights and blacks. So there's like a inherent system of colorism, remnants from apartheid. Mm-hmm. So the darkest skinned blacks have, they're the worst off in that society. Then it's the lighter skin, and then it's non-black immigrants or foreigners. So that's kind of idealistically how they want the rest of Africa to go. And South Africa is the model for that.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, if you look at a lot of stuff, I think that Africa, it's not going to be Europeans that are going to be the new colonizers. It's going to be the Chinese.
Oh, it's definitely going to be the Chinese.
Yeah, hands down. Right. Man, we're going this, man. We been going down the rabbit hole, bro. You gotta come to the open mic on Saturday, bro. You gotta come on Saturday.
What time is it gonna happen? Because my mom's birthday is Saturday.
Okay, man. I hope she has a good birthday, man. You know what I'm saying? Congratulations to her and you, man. You know what I'm saying? You only get one mama, you know what I'm saying? So, enjoy it all you can, man. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you live close to her, man. I don't live close to my mom, bro. I haven't seen my mom in like 2 years, so.
Right. So what time are you probably gonna pop up the stream?
So I got a lot of listeners in the UK and overseas, so I'll probably do it around 12 and stuff like that. So
12 a.m.
Yeah, 12 a.m. Oh, no, not at midnight. No, not at midnight. Sorry, 12 p.m. noon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's Pacific Central Time or PST. Sorry.
Okay, so what's that, like 3 over here or 9 over? I'm Eastern, so what's that, like
Yeah, it's
9?
about 3 hour difference, 3 or 4 hour difference. Yes.
So are we? But we're before y'all, right?
Yes.
Okay, so like 9. Okay,
Yeah.
got you. All right, well, peace, man. It's been a good stream. Pleasure talking to you. Do you think that this one was too graphic to take to where you had to take it down,
Dude,
or
the
what?
way that YouTube is going right now, man, you literally can't say. There's two groups of people you can't criticize. That's all I'm going to say. And you don't know one starts with a J and one starts with an L.
Gotcha. Yeah. Right.
Mace broke it down perfectly. He was like, hey, there's two groups of people you can't break it down. I actually thought about it. I was like, you can't go on YouTube and find videos criticizing these groups of people anywhere. Like, you can't. Like, they shut that shit down.
Right.
Even going to the super chats, like, I like to super chat so I can support my favorite YouTubers as well as show my opinions. You know what I'm saying? And YouTube straight up, you can't, even in the algorithm, for instance, you can't mention gender. Like, you can't mention woman. Like, especially red pill spaces, like, you have to misspell woman on purpose. You can't say that. You can't. I used to get away with the rainbow, using the rainbow emoji. They got rid of the. I can't use rainbow emoji anymore to describe anything. I can't say even ninjas. I can't say ninjas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like they started a real clamp down on the language and stuff like that. So I mean, I think
you put in like a fruit and then a soup emoji. You think that will work or what? They probably haven't caught on to that yet.
Yeah, but just even the fact that you use fruit, because we already know that that's been used before. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But I mean, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, man, it's getting to a point where you're kind of we had to basically think ahead with stuff, and like I'm going to say before, if you identify with anything that is, a part of a non-heteronormative group, or you're of any race or religion whatsoever, I have nothing but respect for you if you respect me. Point blank, period. I am not here to wipe out your existence and to stop you from living your life. However, I will stand up for truth, and I will stand up for problematic things that I think that are being normalized as far as the way that they're being about. Like, if you want to raise your kids a certain kind of way, fine. Like, for instance, I'm going to raise my kids with my belief system, right? That's my job as a parent. That's my job as a parent, is to instill my values into my children. When they get 18, they can do whatever the hell they want to do, right? You're going to have the same thing from your stance of what you believe, right? And when we go to public spaces, right, public schools, libraries and stuff that are meant for the public, yes, I understand that you want to be respected and you want your point of view to be looked upon as being valid, but there's ways of going about that. And children, I think it's better for them to get mature enough to where they understand the context of what these adults are doing, and I think that human sexuality is a very complex thing that needs to be talked about from a very mature standpoint, and really young children don't have the maturity to understand the context of those conversations, right?
Right.
So that's why I'm gonna say that's my official stance. And I think that's pretty reasonable. If anybody doesn't think that's unreasonable, I think they're an irrational person.
Do you think that homosexuality is natural?
By natural, as far as it's in the animal kingdom and X, Y, and Z, right? Is that the reference you're using?
Yeah.
Well, if you're using it in that sentence, it is found in certain animal species, but yes, it's not the standard, because obviously if that was a standard, they wouldn't reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So in that context, I guess if you're using, like, see, I really tried not to use animals as being
right.
standard of morality. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of things that animals do, because a lot of people, a lot of people of certain agendas love using animals as a standard of what is acceptable, what's not acceptable for human beings to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think that gets kind of problematic in and of itself. I think that human beings were higher than that. You know what I'm saying? Because like a lot of, for instance, animals, there's animals that kill their children, that eat their kids. You know, there's animals that breed with their. I've had cats, right? They weren't my cats, but they're roommates' cats. I've seen cats breed with their kittens. It's like, you know what I'm saying, when they're in heat. So like, you know what I'm saying? So somebody could say incest isn't natural. Well, cats do it. So
practice somewhere within the animal kingdom. But yeah, here's my thing. I think that basically we can't use. It depends on the species of animal you're referencing as well and their attachment to humans. Because I mean, if we're trying to justify the actions based on the rationale that like an amphibian does it, does that make any sense? Like, there's no linear thought process in coming to that reality, right? So that's why I think that the species also matters. But
yeah.
then
Okay,
basically,
so my biggest argument where I come from is, for instance, I am a religious person or spiritual, whatever people like to call it, right? It means different things to different people, right? So I believe that there's the way of the world and there's a way of what we're supposed to be as humans, right? As humans being above animals and things of that nature. Now, that being said, it's a conflict because in this day and age, you can't be true to what you believe as, say, your stances, because that's looked upon as being bigoted. I actually had an issue with this in a public space where people are like, oh, well, you're Muslim. Oh, what do you think about gay people? And there was somebody that was gay that was there. And I was like, I'm not going to talk about that. Because like, I already know what they know, they most likely know what the answer is, but it's not going to have to come out of my mouth. I'm not going to let it come out of my mouth because I'm not going to let that come back to bite me in the ass, especially if it's relating to being anything involved with it in the workspace, right? I mean, you got to be really honest and be really careful what you talk about in the workplace when it comes to stuff like that, right? So that being said, that's kind of how I approach it. And for instance, I believe, right, that if you actually Google this, right, take some time in Google. Actually, let me screen share this. And this is all I'm going to show. And I'm going to screen share this, and because I'm not going to let it come out of my mouth, and I'm going to be completely objective, but I'm gonna do this. And I've bookmarked this, and I've shown this to a few people when we talk about this, but nobody really even really wants to even acknowledge and say this. So be with me now. I'm gonna Google this, and I'm gonna screen share it. Okay.
all right. And my thing was, the last thing is, you basically admitted that it wasn't natural when describing it, because you were like, practice in a macrocosmic sense is not conducive to reproduction, which is the main goal of every species. So I mean, you said it, but you didn't say it outright. So I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Okay, you know what? So my screen is doing this real thing. So actually, my stream is frozen. The timer is going on my stream, but the options for my buttons aren't going up. But so I'm gonna tell you to Google this, right? And you're gonna see what I see, right? It's not even a screen share. Google, and anybody watching the audience, this is Google talking. This is not me. And Google is a pretty quote progressive company. So these are the first results that they have that they say are credible sources. Google, are you born gay? Do me a favor, do it right now.
All right.
I do this challenge, and I don't mean to be offensive whatsoever, but I have to tell people this, to ask people to do this when this conversation happens, because there's anecdotal evidence and there's the science, because people, you'll love to put science on this pedestal because science proves that this is right and this is wrong, right? And science is used to determine morality often, right?
So are you talking about the Scientific American?
Literally, yeah. Scientific American, pretty much all those. If you look at, even on Forbes, look at that. Look at that article from Forbes. They're saying it's a myth.
Yeah,
They say it's a myth, but it's natural, like the actual gene, because the idea of the gene is what was pushed as being a way of saying, hey, these people can't control what they're doing, so therefore they have to be treated with respect and dignity and stuff. And granted, hey, I don't believe that anybody should be mistreated whatsoever. That being said, but that was an argument that they used to say, hey, there's that, hey, there should be treated like any other minority, just like you're born black. You know what I'm saying? You're born Mexican, you're born this, you're born that, right? And
it's probably not true.
So even from well, that's what I'm saying. Well, I'm using the results of the Google search,
right?
Like I'm not gonna say my opinion whatsoever. And like I have to say, everybody deserves to be respect for dignity. But when we have these conversations, if you want to approach it from a scientific standpoint, these researches was not something that was done randomly off the bat. This is research that they took years. If you go to any of those articles, and I've done it, go to each one of those articles. These are studies that took over the span of years. Right?
Right.
And so it's ridiculous that look at the one. I don't know if you see one of these ones. PBS. There's one by PBS. PBS is a pretty liberal, progressive organization. I'm going to say the title. All right.
There's no straight gene. Sexuality is just complex. Is that the one?
Yeah. So that one. So they're being like, hey, you're not born anything. Right. So they're like, hey, you're not born anything. So you can't use that you're born any kind of way as being as evidence for X, Y, and Z. Right. So that one doesn't support either argument. Right. It's saying, hey, at the end of the day, people just do what they want to do. So they're saying, so that argument is saying it's a choice.
So they're making it straight cultural conditioning. That's the argument. That's the rabbit hole they're going down. But at the same time, you could argue that culture forms around what's most necessary for survival.
I mean, so when you get to that conversation, so what I see these days, right, is there's two, when it comes to that survival thing, right? There's people that on a scientific level, they're saying, hey, it's actually a good thing because the world's overpopulated and these people aren't reproducing. So it's helping even out the playing field because humans are toxic to their environment. Human beings, we cause pollution, we destroy the world in X, Y, and Z. So that's one of the arguments, right? And there's another argument that, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z, like, hey, it doesn't really, it might happen and it might not be good for reproductions, but so what? People should be happy to live their lives. You know what I'm saying? Those are the arguments that I've kind of heard from both of those spectrums.
Mm-hmm.
And so that actually, if you looked at the early part of my stream, right, that's why I called it my biggest struggle. And my biggest struggle is the way of the world and my own moral convictions. And what I see is people chase what happiness, right? Happiness is what people say is the paradigm, the end all be all of the reason to live. Like the reason to live is to be happy. So that means you have to buy what makes you happy. You have to seek pleasure at all times, right? And the only reason people work is so they can have more money or more opportunities to gain pleasure, right? And I was saying from an ethical and a moral standpoint, a serial killer could say that, right? A serial killer says, hey, life is all about what makes me happy. I love slaughtering people. A pedophile could say, I love doing this, right? You can't use happiness as being the standard of what you consider as right and wrong, right? Because those might be extreme examples, but people in their own selfish desires, if they say I have that mindset, they're going to pursue their own happiness. If you say as a society that happiness is the most important thing, right? Previously, I don't think that was a real thing. I think for a lot of human history, it wasn't happiness. It was about legacy, right? We're born and, you're born and your purpose of your life is to better the world around you. It's not your own individual happiness. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And
right.
Black people, we in slavery, right? Happiness wasn't what the average slave was really thinking about. It was that, hey, I'm born a slave. I was born of a slave. Maybe my kids will be free. That's more important than my own happiness. Or maybe my people will be free. Like let's say I became a runaway slave. I don't want to help anybody else because I'm happy. I got what I wanted. I'm living my best life. Like that would be a warped view of looking at things. And we probably never would have been free if that was our mindset, right?
As a collective, so I mean, Black people via their own volition probably wouldn't have been free no matter what they thought. And the natural instinct of humans is to think hedonistically, right? So
Yeah.
within a situation like that, there's not enough room for you to think about the whole entire plantation getting free when only one or two could get free without anybody noticing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to end this. An NBA fan.
Yeah.
I appreciate your honesty.
Right.
I appreciate your honesty a lot, and especially you're a young cat. So maybe if you get more experience in life, maybe some things that of how you approach certain things, maybe you'll understand. Like maybe the approach maybe isn't always the best way of how you're approaching it. Like because of the way of the world these days. Like I'm not trying to silence your speech whatsoever. I'm not trying to silence you or anything like that because on a lot of points, I'm going to say it right here. On a lot of things, I actually agree with you, right? I actually agree with you for the most part. I just worry about people looking at this channel and basically audiences getting turned off because believe it or not, I think most people on this channel actually agree with both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that YouTube is for instance, there's like a couple of females that come here. I think I have like about 4 females that come on here, like 4 or 5 that come on here on a regular basis, right? And one of them, we actually agree on a lot of things. We're both of the same religion, right? So she's talked about it before, her stance on that too, and from her expertise as well, and her standpoint on these same issues, she actually agrees with us too, right? But the way she approaches it is she acknowledges that, like, hey, especially in the UK, in that country, it's even more strict with speech. Like, there's certain things you can't say, right? Period, right? They have less freedom of speech than we have here. And I think that as I try to grow this audience, since this channel is in its infant stage, I don't want this to be known as 2 things that the Manosphere is notorious for: the Bash Black Woman channel and the Bash the Rainbow Community, channel.
Is this a pro-truth channel or what? And what would you define as bashing?
I think bashing is when you get to a point where all you're doing is talking about the negative. Like, for instance, that's why, like, earlier I was just like, hey, there are righteous women out here. Even my boy Curly, right? He was just like, hey, I don't even know if I'm ever going to get married. I'm like, hey, because he was like, hey, this might happen. This might happen. I was like, hey, to be honest, there's actually some decent girls out there that probably feel the same type of way. They're like, hey, I'm worried about getting married because I'm willing to submit to my husband and do this and do that. But, what if he, beats me aside my head for no reason? What if he doesn't take care of the kids? What if he doesn't do that? What if he just loses his job and he doesn't care about getting another one and I'm faced with a burden? Like, these things do happen, right? And I think as Black men, especially, and from our experiences and the things we see, we get really ingrained in our perspective. And sometimes that shuts down like a conversation, right? And that's why I do like the idea of females being in the manosphere. I do like the idea of females being in the manosphere because if we can get them to understand where we're coming from and they can respect that and they can kind of give that out to other people, then I think that that's going to be a lot more effective than us just being amongst ourselves and circle jerking. And then, we're not really putting it into practice. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to make this thing grow, the population, like we can turn guys onto the red pill or this and that. But if we don't have other men, bring other men into this world that believe the same things that we believe in, it's just going to keep on going. right?
Right. Here's my thing. So I think that you're kind of like trying to do your due diligence or over due diligence to not turn off a side, right? But based off of how we've been socialized, right?
Mm-hmm.
One side really be pro truth and not turn off another side based on how they've been socialized to take criticism or the lack thereof.
You know what?
Right.
And actually, that's what I hope to do on this channel. Actually, I eventually want to get to a point, and I'm not going to do this on my own fruition. I'm pretty sure if anybody comes to this channel, if you have people that disagree with my stances, invite them over here so I can have a discussion on them. So I could be like, hey, I'm opening the door in this space to have a conversation with you about this. But granted, this is a pro-truth channel, and there's certain, I will set the parameters of what is going to be a respectful conversation. And I'm trying not to, I will not try to go and be the basic kind of way, but I am going to be straightforward in my convictions, right? And I can't compromise my morals to fix other people's feelings. You know what I'm saying?
And my thing's like, okay, so if we're really going to be true to that sentiment, we go ahead and say homosexuality isn't natural, right? There's no precedent within the human civilization like Australopithecus, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. There's no history of that being conducive to evolution, right? So that's where like we really have to go there, and a lot of things would be tested, a lot of social norms would be tested, and that's not what people want. And then another thing, you said that black men are super stuck in their way. You're trying to say, you said that the black manosphere is super stuck in their ways, right?
And I'm going to go in the paint and say yes. The black manosphere it's not, if we don't grow, we're going to die out. Like people are going to get people eventually after a couple of years, people are going to hear the same thing over and over again. Our audiences are going to grow, and then people are going to move on. You know what I'm saying? That's what I worry about. That's what I worry about.
My thing. It's okay to be it's okay to stick to your argument or whatever if it's predicated on fact. There's not anything inherently wrong with being strong or anything like that over stubborn or anything when you're being confronted with lies or you're being confronted with something that you know isn't true. You see what I'm saying? So we can't just have parody just for the sake of it at the expense of truth.
Mm-hmm. And I think also I'm conflicted because I'm going to be honest, and I've got to say this, especially in my line of work, especially when you think about YouTube. Like honestly, I'm probably super for even camming up right now, and I keep on forgetting that when I have these conversations. Like see, early in my stream, I was kind of avoiding all this stuff, but we already started the stream, and you hopped on, so it is what it is, right? But I kind of I had a video where I was like, hey, I'm not going to cam up anymore because of X, Y, and Z. Because when I have these conversations, it's one thing, for instance, for me to be truthful, but the way that things are, no matter what kind of place you're employed in, it's universally looked upon, at least in this country, like if you have these kinds of conversations, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. Employers think you're a hot button. Your boss might feel some type of way about you. Even though, man, I've worked at places where we talk about politics. I've worked at places where we talk about controversial issues, the death penalty, abortion, all this stuff, and people can get along with that. But this particular conversation, oh boy, you get labeled a bigot, and all it takes is just pushing people in the wrong direction, and then you're labeled as an extremist or something like that. And that's the last thing I want. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already get kind of rubbed off the wrong way sometimes. I rub people off the wrong way in general, like for certain things. Like there's certain things I don't participate in, and people look at me as like a weirdo. Like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I'm like, hey, well, I don't really care. Like I used to do that kind of stuff. I don't really do that stuff any kind of anymore. I'll help you guys with X, Y, and Z to plan out this or whatever like that. But at this point in my life, it's not something that I'm invested in. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just off of that, people feel some type of way. But if they feel like I have these kind of feelings and conditions, they're gonna feel like, oh well, he's a bigot and he doesn't like, that's why he doesn't like me. He doesn't see, I knew something was up. He doesn't like me because he's a bigot. You know what I mean? And I don't want that ever to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the most part, I treat everybody exactly the same. Granted, we all have our biases and stuff like that, but I treat everybody roughly the same with the same freaking kind of respect, regardless of what gender, regardless of what sexuality you are. I don't give a damn what regardless of religion you are and stuff like that. But, you know, in my personal life, in my private life, you know, I do have my belief systems and I do have a right to have certain feelings about how I feel about things, you know?
Yeah.
And I wish that was understood, you know?
Right. And I'll try to manage that more, because I don't even know like what you think are buzzwords or not, because certain stuff, I don't know if just like certain people think that just the limits like profanity, and then some people are like, oh, we can't offend like the homos or like the Jews or anything like that. So and then it's not, and then it's like you got to factor in like intent, right? So you're not even always trying to offend, or in a lot of this is common terminology that macrocosmically isn't really viewed as offensive towards a certain group. So I don't, yeah, it's kind of tough, but yeah.
Oh crap, man! I just realized it's 10:30, man. I should have been in bed right now, man. Sorry, I got it in now. I got it.
Yeah. Are you keeping this one up?
Nah, man. Every time we have these conversations, I think it's also better for the channel. Honestly, I keep all. If we talk about certain things in an open mic, then I'll keep the open mics up. I think I'm gonna permanently keep open mics up or videos that I just do for myself. But when I have these conversations, I think I'm gonna be really worried about keeping them up. I'll probably take them down within a day or two at the most.
You could like make them like unlisted, so only the finite group of people who were here could like view them.
I think there's a lot of guys that, especially I know Angry Man and a lot of other guys that have been in the manosphere for a while. They'll make their videos private. Like if you want to try to see their old videos, they say, "Oh, this video is now considered private." So I'll try to figure that out. I just started getting used to the stream stuff on YouTube, so I'll do my research.
Or I
might start using Patreon. I might start using people for Patreon though. Like that, you can't start using Patreon until you get like over like 1K subscribers. You know.
Nah, you can use it. You can use it whenever. What did they say something like you have to have this?
Well, I mean, I gotta garner an audience enough to where they would want to have and be a part of a Patreon. I mean, I'm not gonna charge a lot, but like at least $1. Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I at least gotta have like enough people to where it's worth putting the content on there. You know what I'm saying? Because that's more work. I got my personal life too. I can't be sitting all the time freaking doing stuff. You know?
What would it take to just like take this and put it on? Like it wouldn't even. I don't know because I'm not a content creator. You know what I'm saying? Like how long would it take to put it on Patreon?
I've never used Patreon. I'll do my research and ask people around. And see what's going on. So. Yeah, man, I'm gonna call it a night, bro. Hey, and it was great chopping up with you as usual, bro. I'll see you on the next one. I do a stream daily, so maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
All right, peace.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah.